Now we're good?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll go ahead and get our pre-meeting going. First item we got on the agenda is gonna be consideration of a proposed rezone. I think we've seen this one before, but it's coming through with some changes, so. Tammy,
Yeah, the reason why this is coming through and you'll see in your packet is the street alignment they're proposing is a little bit different than what they had before. 74 lots is what they're proposing, so assuming that the conceptual acreage amount is correct, that's what they would be entitled to under the R115 zone. And in my presentation, I've got in there a snapshot of what they had previously proposed under the Wilder application versus what they're proposing with this one. We don't have any cul-de-sacs here. We've got pathways. The biggest thing that planning is gonna want to ask for is a pathway along, it's not even along the southern boundary because the project doesn't border the canal to the south. But we would like the developer to contribute in some way towards continuing that pathway. Now, they've done a rezone over here and they're doing the pathway along the northern boundary of that one. We'd like to see it continue down here. Okay. That's kind of it. They are donating. Sorry.
Doing it along the northern or the western part of the boundary.
So
Just across 4700, right?
across 4700, it's along the northern boundary of that development.
Okay.
On this side, it's south, but they don't quite border it.
Oh, so this one would go straight across 4700, they'd go to the other end of the development before they met up, right?
no, it'd go.
No,
straight
it would
across.
go
If
straight
they put
across.
this one in, it would go straight to where
Yeah,
the one on that other one.
So you're looking to put it at the southernmost boundary of their property, they can't go right next to the canal, but you want it next to their property, or what's?
well, we'd like them, so the problem is this parcel here that they own, that they're looking to develop, doesn't quite border the canal. So the improvement of the pathway along there doesn't fall within their property boundaries.
So you just want them to submit money?
Contribute towards it in some way, because we'd like to see that pathway that they will be installing on the west side of 4700 continue across.
Especially with that school property over there too, that would be.
Yeah.
Did you talk to them about that?
We've touched base a little bit. They may push back a little bit. I'm not sure, but we have mentioned to them that that is a critical thing that we would like to see. Now, they are also proposing to donate 7,500 per lot in this, which equates to about 555,000 with the Parks District. So there may be a little negotiation there still a little bit before this gets to final. Before we take them to the county commission, we need something from UDOT. Right now, they're in negotiations with UDOT for both of those accesses on 4700. The issue is they can't quite place them the minimum 660 feet apart per UDOT standards and have it make sense and have the roadways within make sense. And so we need some kind of approval or nod from UDOT before we'll take them to the county commission that they're good with those two accesses.
Because the one to the north, the state wasn't gonna allow them to have it be a permanent,
Mhm.
it's just like an emergency access or something.
Right.
I forget.
Yeah, I think initially they were proposing maybe a cul-de-sac with a gate that would eventually, but we'd like to see both of those. I think UDOT has softened up a little bit on their stance. But they've got to figure out how to meet UDOT standards. UDOT would also like to see this right of way connect across the roadway. Somehow, I think there's an access to the west. So they've still got a little bit of negotiations with UDOT, but they are in discussions with them. They have submitted their concept plan and UDOT has given them comments back. So they're in discussions right now. But that will be ironed out before this goes to the county commission.
So the question, there's just that tiny bit of land between the canal and their property, right?
Correct.
And that is just where we put a path, there isn't really room to do anything else, but.
You're talking here, right here? Or you're talking
Just
down
all
below?
along that bottom border.
Where we would like to see it, where we'd like to see the pathway is several feet south of their project boundary.
Okay.
So while we can't necessarily require it because it doesn't fall within their project boundary, we are strongly encouraging them to contribute towards that. And if we can negotiate, something, we'd like to do that, but we're just not sure when the project to the south will develop. And we don't wanna miss an opportunity to connect that pathway through there.
Is that Cherokee right up there to their south, and then Upper Irrigation just has a right of way through there?
Yes.
That's how that works,
Yep.
or an easement.
Yes, it's owned and fee by, Cherokee. Yep.
Well,
Did I miss
where
it?
they've shown the pathway is useless, so they definitely do not put that there. There's like 8 billion crossings.
You're talking here?
Yeah, there's no
So-
point to do that.
Yeah, so we would probably ask that they just put sidewalk here
Yeah,
and a pathway along that canal instead.
but it's hard to require
Yes,
the pathway.
Well,
And they
it's
are
kind of a tough-
contributing to the Parks District with their fees per lot,
right.
so. I don't know, I'd have a hard time asking for more when they've met everything for that division.
There is a road that runs, I believe, along that canal. Maybe it's over the canal. I can't
It sits on
remember.
top of
It's on
it.
top of it. I was gonna say, if it's next to it, then, maybe we could just throw some money to the canal company to improve the road, but if it's on top of it, I don't know if we want asphalt on top of that old pipe that's under the ground there.
So you don't wanna go on the north side of it either though, cause it's all wet.
It's wet.
Both sides of that.
It's
You
wet.
don't, you wanna be on top or else you're gonna be in,
Do you think it could hold it?
for a walking path?
Well, so walking paths, you have to get an ambulance down it. So it doesn't have to,
Trouble is they
doesn't have to hold
that.
us in there.
I doubt whether Hooper would be interested in doing anything over the top of that canal, because it leaks
All the time.
horribly.
What are they allowing them to do on the west side 47? Or that rezone?
Requirement was for them to put a pathway, parallel, so if it can't be in the easement, it'll be on the developer's property. This one's kind of hard. It'd be nice, and Tammy, I'm sorry, it's your project.
No, you're fine.
It'd be nice to be able to say if the, first developer who comes in needs to build the infrastructure, but these guys have a lot that's kind of carved out in there. If that lot wasn't right there next to, on 47 West, it'd be easy to say, all right, well, just build the pathway on the north side of the canal, across, across from all the wetness, where it's a little drier, but there's a house right there.
But they can continue on, what if we just ask them to put it on the southern portion of what they own, just in the backyard?
We could, there's that, house that's right there.
Well, they've got,
Part of it.
what is that called? They've got a little area, just go around the house, it'd be just a jog in the
But it
path.
won't match. You'd have to, how would you get it from here to here though? If you could go straight across. Plus that canal's elevated right there. So really your best pedestrian crossing is gonna be
That's
on
On the canal.
On the canal, but we can't cross on the canal.
Well, we probably could cross on the canal where the road is, because that's definitely built for
okay.
vehicles and all that.
Yeah.
So what we could do, if you guys want to, is we can situate the pathway to the north side of that lot, running along the street, kind of that open space area, and then have it just drop down on the east side of that lot, drop down to essentially the southern property boundary and have it run along that. We could certainly do that, and then if that lot owner ever allows us to build through, then we just build through.
Yeah, I think that would be the best solution for now, because otherwise I don't know
When we're gonna get it.
when, and I think getting too close to now, it's gonna be too wet, so
Yeah.
that alignment might be pretty good.
The worst thing about crossing the road down there on the north side of that lot is the visibility from that canal, because that canal sits up high and the road drops down.
Yeah,
Yeah, everybody headed to the north.
can't see it.
If we keep the canal crossing, or if we keep the pathway crossing where the canal crossing
Right,
is,
and then.
and then go up
Around.
around, it's gonna be a funny little jog, but. The good thing is we could route the traffic the way we need to, and we could just do it with sidewalks. Up until we get to the other side of that lot. We could also say something like, if that lot owner will allow it, build it through. So a few different ways that we could do this, but I wouldn't miss the opportunity to get a good length of that built.
Or something, yeah, something.
I think even if it's disconnected and at the south end of that lot, I just don't think we're gonna be able to require them to build it off their property. And so I think build it on that south side, or at the very least, if they build it along the opposite side of the road where they have it now, and then it can They probably aren't gonna want it through their community, or maybe they don't care, but it'll have less access points.
Yeah.
But yeah, they can go through the backyards and then they'll have a section done, which is a section more than we'll have if we don't
do it, yep.
do it.
And they're doing the development across the street, so hopefully it's a pretty good linear section. It could be a quarter mile plus.
And if they have a pathway that kind of, yeah, takes them out to the main street somehow, and then, yeah, patch it in whenever you can.
It's the same developer on both sides of 4700, right?
It is.
Okay, what does it hurt to ask?
Yeah, and honestly, with these kind of situations where they don't own that one property, I don't think it hurts to say, if you can acquire the right of way, build it through. If they'll allow it. If not, then make some sidewalk connections around
Make
it.
an alternate path.
Yeah, it also isn't gonna hurt us to say, put curb gutter and sidewalk in front of that house. Cause this has a big enough impact and you're doing a rezone, so. Even if it isn't directly tied to their impact, if you feel like you need that sidewalk to go around that property, then great.
You mean in front of the existing house?
Mhm. So someone can go north and then east and then back south to the pathway.
Sidewalk from there down to the canal.
Yeah.
That'd probably be the best solution.
They've got lots of jobs like that in the Ogden pathway. Whenever you do it, there's always like one little funky part because,
Yeah.
and it works.
Yeah. Maybe Cherokee be ready to do something.
Don't think so.
Maybe we should take a break and go get some.
Let's grab our dinner real quick.
You're thinking my sugar's low?
Yeah. Either that or we get a blood test or something, drink the way.
We'll turn the recorder on.
Wait.
Is it off now?
No.
Oh, oh.
Charlie, what about this?
Hey, how's it going, Andrew? Good.
Are the reports as well, just in case you didn't have them anymore, so it's like two or three staff reports that are in there. So on this one, been talking with Aaron Robertson from Heritage. And they do believe that they've got the water that went with that old farm. And so they're actually working out with the person who has the water in their name right now. And that's the Ropolatos, who own the it's 4 of those homes on the north side by 1800, north of the park. Kind of see that cut out in their rezone map. The Ropolatos were the ones who used to own the farm, and when the farm transferred hands, for some reason, the water didn't. So sounds to me like the developer is just proposing to square off their property just a little bit in exchange for them signing over the water rights. That way they don't have to go get it adjudicated. And
Was
then,
that a mistake on the water or was it something maybe it's overlooked?
my understanding is the way that the land was transferred, might have gone through like probate or might have gone through bankruptcy or something like that. And so it wasn't clear and it wasn't a clear cut thing for whoever the new owner was to take ownership over all the interests that were there.
Which owner? Charlie, do we know how many water shares that would be?
So
There's 46 acre feet of water between the two of them.
was it 46? Okay, I thought it was
Okay, so it's not sure.
46. Okay.
If they're giving them both, cause there's the other smaller one, the larger part's just over 40 acre feet, and it's a 1960 priority, and then there's a 1980 priority that's got another roughly 5.
Yeah.
Okay, the applicant did reach out to me on that consideration item in the staff recommendation. Basically said, I don't want this to be an open check for water, and I want this to be, let's put some limits on it, but let's make sure it's enough for the water or for park district to irrigate their vegetation. So by itself, it might not be enough. Okay.
I mean, if you look at the duty value of what Weaver County is, and I
4
don't
acre
know,
feet.
even if that total park's 32 acres or 4 acre foot per acre, then I mean, it's not all gonna be landscape. So I mean, you gotta reduce that number down, but
Right.
we're
Even if
looking,
you cut it
you got
in half,
about
it's
11
still
and a half acres you can water with what they're.
with what they have. Okay. Well, that'll get them a start, I guess, on the park. So maybe all the water goes. Maybe that's something that you guys need to discuss with the developer tonight. He'll have a little bit more information than I have on it. To my understanding, nothing is concrete on that, other than he is planning on getting the park district water for it. So with that in mind, that feels like a pretty good exchange for losing the open space. They dedicate the 32-acre park. 22-acre park for a total of 32 acres for the park. Thank you very much. With some water, the water that is available for it, in exchange for phase 6 phases 4 and 5 open space becoming phase 6 development.
And did I see in there you ran the numbers for if they were paying 7,500? They're not doing the park donation, this is the park donation.
This is the park's donation.
And you ran the numbers that if they were paying 7,500 per lot.
So in the original staff,
Was it?
540.
yeah, in the original staff report, I did run those numbers. If it was 7,500 per new lot. In the memo, I didn't recap on that. I just,
It has to be new and existing lot to make it the same as the current code, correct?
if it was new and existing, that'd be,
I only did it on the 72 existing. I mean, if, this one's kind of interesting, because we've got the 72 of the new stuff. And I don't really get the other side of bringing those in anymore.
the old stuff. Do you wanna go back over it again?
Well, I digging through what's in here and what you provided, and I was trying to wrap my head around the TDR numbers, and then as I look at the map. We're, all TDR thing, first off, I don't think should be considered that, so.
Okay.
We're not ready for TDR down here.
Yeah.
You know, I think we need to get our TDR stuff in place prior to, before we dangle a carrot out there to say you could use these development rights.
Yeah.
Somewhere else. I mean, I'm not against TDRs and I'd love to see TDRs down here, but I think we're getting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
On that one.
Yep.
And as I look through, I mean, phases 4 and 5, we gain possibly that one road connection out of that cul-de-sac, which, given for the next proposal on there, I see why that one would be nice, but I mean, that's a lot of development rights we're getting basically to get that one road to tie in. If I could find that page.
I guess that's what I want to see, is we just take the whole area that's being rezoned. How many homes can he get out of it? And it's 7,500 per lot, and then, you know, what's that value, and then we compare it to the water, the land, the road, and to me, that makes it a kind of clear picture.
Yeah, and we definitely didn't do that part of the math. In fact, I think let me,
Total lots is 214, right? If I remember right.
is that,
All phases?
Right. All phases.
so,
But I thought we were getting a monster park. It's over 1 million.
And that would
20
be
acres.
considered that would be deducted from whatever they were paid of, right? So,
I know it's in there.
sorry, yeah, I'm trying to find it too.
My only opinion on this is I don't think we consider anything with 4 and 5. We look at this as the park, the open space and phase 6.
And for me, I think that's a pretty fair exchange. And I think the applicant thinks it's a fair exchange as well.
They can take your own that later.
But I.
Yeah, if they wanted to.
Give them the parks.
No, I guess the question for you guys is, do you want to see the original phases 1 through 5 rezoned to the R115 or just the phase 6 rezoned to the R115?
so the open space for the first 5 phases is what they want to make phase 6, right?
The open space for the first, for phases 1, 2, and 3, is what they want to make the park. Open space for phase 4 and 5 is what they want to make phase 6.
Open space for 4 and 5.
Oh, I
So
found
I
this
would
map.
say-
There's the 6, there's 4 and 5, and then this is 1 through 3. In my opinion, 1 through 3 is done. It's too far past. I mean, most of those are built on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can do anything with 1 through 3. Looking at phases 4 and 5. I mean, really, we're only getting that connection. Essentially, if,
But it's already approved.
yeah,
But the open space for 4 and 5 is what they're trying to renegotiate, so I think we need to include 4 and 5 with 6, put all of those buildings together.
Okay.
that's a
Figure out what, you know, if they tried to do all that at once. I think we can get kind of a dollar amount from that.
I didn't even think of yours, that's that. You're
Yeah.
right, cause
Put that,
they're giving up the open
you know,
space.
so you can.
For 1 and
For-
2.
Well, for 4 and 5, which
Wait, the park is the open space for the stuff that's already done, right?
Well,
Park is the open space for phases 1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
The original 9 acres.
The original 9 acres plus the 22 that the applicant is willing to donate.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
that's
that's
4 and
phases.
5.
No, that's phases 1, 2, and 3. Phases 4 and 5 open space is where phase 6 will be. So
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's why I think we put 4, 5, and 6 together and just treat it like we would a
That's-
new zone.
that's phase 5 open space, that's phase 4 open space.
well, so then
One,
technically what
two,
Charlie's saying. By that one, so 4 and 5 is open space is what they're proposing to build
To
on.
build on.
Yeah.
So it's,
And they're donating the open space to the county. So. Hard to see that. It's like, you don't have to take care of it. Now the county's taking care of it. Is that?
and go look at it.
Is that a donation or is that just, I don't want to take care of it? So
Well,
I,
it'd be a public park.
so,
They need something out west. They
Well,
don't get made, I think.
yeah, if we take the dollar amount for all the homes in 4, 5, and 6. And then deduct water from that.
How much is water going for right now?
Well, if it was a priority water right, so, or a senior water right, which is gonna be early, the water districts offer $7,500 an acre foot for that, but a senior right, you're talking a 19. Some of those are 1902s and some of them are 1918 water rights. So this would be, these two, given the years, are gonna be considered a junior water right.
Juniors?
And so I mean. Based on what the governor came out and said last year, you know, first in time, first in right with a junior right. It's, the value is just not quite. I mean, it wouldn't be the same,
If I can chicken
but
scratch this.
it goes back to. Willing buyer and willing seller. I mean, what's someone worth, what's it worth to someone to buy it?
Okay, so senior was 7,500 per acre foot. Let me do some math for you, so that once we get in there, which looks like we should probably get in there now.
I already did it for you.
You already did the math? Well, I won't do it.
You're talking, I mean, say that a junior right's worth $3,500 an acre foot, you're talking $161,000.
Does it make sense to?
For the 46 roughly acre feet.
Okay,
Great minds think alike, Charlie, that's why.
yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad.
Okay.
This is what I thought you were doing. This is what I got.
Page 5.
Yeah.
And I think we've got 89 units and that's about.
So,
170,000.
About 72 in face.
Well, the 72 is just.
Are we safe to leave stuff in here? I guess we're gonna be gone a while.
Writing.
But I come back here for the work session, all right? Yeah.
Not ready to make a motion.
It's down in here.
Lock the doors so the Republican Party can have their meeting in here and eat all our dinner again.
Did they eat our dinner as well?
Get of it, and they thought it was for them.
That's funny.
The county was treating them extra special. Most of it.
That's funny.
They're like, don't mind if I do?
I'm sorry, I think that.
No, I don't, you're good, you got it, thank you.
Yeah.
Is that solid good for you, Judge?
We didn't get it right
Good.
because you were yapping the whole time.
Yeah, but I'm not hungry.
Well, that's.
I'm not terribly hungry either, but free food,
But I said her second.
And just for Jackson, right?
After you. And, sorry.
Yeah. I mean.
I mean, aren't that like. Oh, I'll be back.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone out to the Western Weaver Planning Commission meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 13th. We're going to go ahead and let the record indicate that all planning commission members are in attendance for tonight's meeting, and we appreciate them all taking the time to be here. If y'all wouldn't mind stand and repeating the pledge with me. Thank you for that. All right, we're gonna roll right into our agenda. These are gonna be our legislative items. First item is gonna be item 1.1 ZMA 2024-09. This will be a public hearing and consideration of a proposed rezone of approximately 26 acres from A1 agricultural zone to an RE15 single-family residential zone at approximately 550 South, 4700 West. Director Grover?
Chair and members of the commission, you'll be forwarding on the recommendation to the legislative body, which is the county commission on this. As you look at this, you will want to make sure it's complying with the general plan. Also, as you look at this too, you'll want to make sure that you have a public hearing. You want to open and close that public hearing with a motion, and Ms. Aydelotte will be presenting.
Thank you.
Evening, commissioners. This is going to look familiar to you because it came before you under a different developer name. The reason why it's coming back before you is they're proposing a slightly different street alignment. So our ordinance requires that they come back before you for a recommendation to the county commission. To orient you to this, this is an approximately 25.5 acre piece in the current A1 zone, located about 600 South, 4700 West. The applicant is looking to rezone this to the R115. So while their application says RE15, for the purposes of this, we're going to call it R115. This is existing versus proposed zoning. This is how this rezone request applies, or excuse me, is applicable with the general plan. This is what I wanted to show you. This was the previous concept that came before you. I just wanted to give you kind of a side-by-side so you could see the differences in their proposed connectivity plan. As you can see, they're showing a couple of connections to the north, 2 to the west, 2 to the east, and 1 to the south, along with pathways throughout. One of the requirements of a rezone request is to show us how they're looking to apply some smart growth standards. And a big one for a lot of these is connectivity. Connectivity and open space, actually. The applicant in this case is proposing 7,500 a lot contribution to the Taylor West Weaver Parks District. They have received a letter from the Parks District in support of this proposal. This concept to the right, this is what the applicant is currently proposing with just a couple of red lines from planning. When we look at connectivity, we're looking at block length standards. And so as we kind of looked at this and discussed it quite a bit, there are a couple of additional connections that we discussed internally as staff. One of them is this one to the west. And I think in the end, we decided for really to make a connection when this is off by maybe 20 to 50 feet, probably wasn't worth it and seemed redundant. This one to the north, and I'm going to let the developer speak to this when it's his turn to get up here actually, but this is being asked for to just meet our block length standards for connections every 400 feet or so. Now, again, the developer may have an alternate idea as far as how they want to meet that along this northern boundary. A big one I wanted to mention is to the south. So this same developer has received and recorded a rezone to the west across 4700 West. Along their northern boundary that would meet up right about here, they will be installing a pathway. This is a regional pathway. So we would be looking for some sort of contribution towards maintaining this or continuing this to the east. The tricky part of this is that this area along the canal does not lie within their development area. So while we may not necessarily be able to require it, we'd like to see some proposal to connect, to continue that pathway that will be coming from the west. Currently, it's ag property. Again, this is their conceptual layout. The applicant is proposing 74 dwelling units within this. The way we calculate density for the R115 is we take the total gross area and divide it by 15,000 square feet. So as long as the average for all of these is 15,000 square feet, it allows the developers some variety in their lot sizes and hopefully meet some of the housing affordability goals of the general plan. You guys have several exhibits in your staff report that I think have been read and where this has come before you previously. I don't want to get too detailed in this, but I will say that with this application, staff would recommend approval of this. Staff feels that the proposed connectivity plan, along with some staff recommendations and their contributions to open space, would meet these goals of a rezone request. Do you have any questions for me at this time? If not, the developer is here to answer some of those as well.
Any questions for staff?
Tammy, I had a quick question that I meant to
Sure.
ask you earlier, sorry. Will you just clarify for me the reason why you're suggesting the R115 compared to the RE15?
The R1, yeah, sure.
No, sorry.
No, you're fine. The ordinance was adjusted to allow for the R115 in the West Weber area. RE15 is typical in the Uinta area. We can call it either one. The development standards are similar, but the R115 section of our ordinance was developed specifically for this Western Weber area.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I read up on them and I couldn't tell the difference earlier, so thank you.
I don't believe the RE15 allows for lot averaging, but the R115 does. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, okay.
All right. Do you want to ask questions of developer? Do you want to hear public comments first?
Do public comments first and then.
Better. Then you don't have to get up here twice. Might get a few more questions. All right, with that, I'm ready for a motion to open a public hearing on this item.
So moved.
Motion, do we got a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're in a public hearing. If anybody from the public wishes to speak on this item, please come up and give us your name and address for the record and
So my name's Kevin Blanche. My address is 573 South, 4700 West. I own all that frontage property. I grew up on this property. And the thing my concern, talk about the cart in front of the horse on this thing. Number one, the hooper irrigation canal runs right through the center of it, which my grandfather put it there in 1968. There's litigation flying right now against my brother and on the easement. I mean, there's a big lawsuit being fought right now on how much easement hooper irrigation has. It's tied up in the courts. Two, what are they gonna do for sewer? There's no sewer there, none. And the only way you're going to get a sewer on that side of the line is with a pump station. There's the gravity flow won't even come close to there. That gravity flow ends right about halfway between the school and 4700 West. That's as far as you can get, if that. I mean, when they put that in before on that subdivision, my brother's, it was a nightmare. So the whole thing with starting to prove rezoning this, rezoning, wouldn't you have to have a package put together for an infrastructure? There isn't one. I mean, 75 homes in that little piece of property with a canal going through it? Oh, please. You're not putting 75 freaking septic tanks in there. It's against the county rules. It's against the state law. So where's I want to see the money put up front for this pump station. What are we talking? $3, $4, $5, $6 million? When they bought this, because I was trying to buy it, I'm like, you really paid that much for it? They paid 3 times what it's worth. It's not feasible. The whole thing's a fairy tale. So until I see a package put together for the infrastructure, I live right there. I still live there. I'm 7th generation there. That land's been in our family since the 1840s. So, and I know that ground so good, but you got to settle the lawsuit with Hooper Irrigation. That is up in the air on how much easement they own, which is going to take out a big chunk of that. And as far as connectivity, from who? I own the property right there. I haven't given them any connectivity. Neither is Larry. I want to see it in writing. Boy, they haven't even approached me. Yeah, we're going to connect to my land? No, they're not. Nope.
Any other comments on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'm ready for a motion to close the public hearing for this item.
Chair, I make a motion to close public hearing.
I got a motion. Do I got a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. We're out of our public hearing. Okay, to address a couple of these concerns. First one I'm gonna address is sewer. There has been an extensive sewer study done on this, I believe, with the rezone that was already approved on the west side of 4700, just kitty corner to this. You're putting in a lift station, correct? A regional lift station that's gonna take on all this area. So there's been an infrastructure plan done. We have letters from water. Obviously, the sewer will be taken care of by the developer. Secondary water by Hooper Irrigation, I believe. So as far as the concerns as far as infrastructure, I believe they've pretty well been addressed. Can't really speak to the issues with the Hooper Irrigation litigation, but I'm pretty sure the developer's property is on the other side of that, and it wouldn't really come into play. You want to come up? Sorry.
I was just going to address the connection concerns, and just to let people know, we plan for the future. The current landowners are not always the future landowners, and it's true. We aren't out to take people's land and build roads on land that's not available. However, people move, people live, they die, they move, they change where they want to be, and when those opportunities arise, we want to make sure that our infrastructure is set up in a reasonable way to serve the community. So when those connections can possibly happen, we don't know when that will happen, but we don't want to leave ourselves in a position where we're not prepared to take advantage of them.
Thank you. You wouldn't mind addressing yourself for us? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm Trek Leverage. I'm representing the developer. Obviously, you guys have seen this plan one too many times, so hopefully this is the last time you guys are going to see it. But super grateful for your time. Staff has been amazing, even with the shortage that they've experienced in this past year. They've been super good to work with. So I'm just glad I'm able to be up here presenting.
Yeah, I appreciate the redraw of the alignments and stuff. This I think fits a lot better for the area. Like Commissioner Wickern said, I think it fits the connectivity to the future in this area. Hopefully UDOT will work with you on those connections.
Yeah,
as drawn.
Yeah, we're about to submit. I don't know if you guys had time to review some of the comments they made, but we just finished addressing all of the comments and are going to be resubmitting here soon. So our traffic engineer is hopeful. I don't pretend like I understand traffic engineers because those studies are very complicated and with weird symbols I don't understand. So
I don't get it either with those traffic and all their stuff. Yeah.
I would like to address just those two pathways. We met with Tammy and Charlie a while ago about those. And so in our minds, looking at the surrounding property, just with how to the north, the parcels are, it doesn't seem like a pathway there seems feasible or makes the most sense. We're 100% willing to oblige the connectivity plan, but in this instance, with different property owners owning those parcels and the parcels being different shapes and sizes that are kind of a little skewampus, we thought your best development would be to just not have that pathway, just so it's not a waste and it's just a pathway to nothing that won't. And similar to the pathway to the west, we just think the future development of that is going to be a block. And I just would hate for 4 homes to have a 4-foot fence along the side. But obviously we're still willing to oblige. We just thought, kind of future thinking, looking around what future development would look like. those two pathways don't make a lot of sense. Cause it's, like, with the one to the west is a property owner and then the school district. So that pathway,
East.
or east, sorry, I got my directions mixed up. But yeah, I just didn't think that was gonna be a pathway that was gonna get a lot of use. So,
And the other one was the one up there to the north, right?
yeah,
Up there.
yeah, it's just
That corner.
some skiwampus parcels. I don't know how they became the way they are, but it just feels like it might not be in our mind, it wouldn't be used as much as we'd want those pathways to be used, and just don't want it to be a pathway to nothing.
I think the one over on the south would be one that would get used, especially since it does go to that school, if that ends up being a school to the east.
Totally.
And crossing, to the other side to the west side of 4700. I mean, that'd be one that I would say that. This one here.
Oh, you mean the canal one?
Yeah.
Oh, we're talking these two.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
I'm
all right,
thinking
you're switching us.
Okay.
I'm not following. I'm with you now.
These others, take them or leave them for me. But this one over here, that when he first got up and addressed this, if I understood you right, you were concerned about that one going kind of to nowhere on the south side.
No, sorry, I was talking just the north and east one.
Oh, over
He got
here.
his directions backwards.
Yeah, I got them.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, sometimes I'm a little slow too.
Apologies.
But I think to Commissioner Favero's point, I mean, something along that where, especially where you've got an alignment coming from the other subdivision across to the west, coming up that canal to 4700. I mean, so. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Yeah, north is up.
yeah.
There you go.
So.
Can I make a suggestion about the path? So as the pathway, the pathway is shown on the south side of the property, and there's a lot of interference. Oh, can we go back?
Sorry, I tried to move.
Oh, that's all
Oh,
right.
here we go. I'm
Okay.
figuring it out right here.
So, what we talked about in pre-meeting was trying to put the pathway along the backside, the very south side of your properties, along the canal, but on your side of the back side of those properties. And it would be, there's that house in the way right now. And so I guess what we'd ask is either to work out an easement to put the pathway through, or to just divert the pathway around the house. So have the pathway come in front of the house and then through your open space, and then cut down along, let's see, property is at 60? I can't.
Right.
Along the west side of 60, and then connect to a pathway, and then omit the pathway that's shown through the center of the, well, not the center, but on that south pathway, omit that one. And just bring it to the very south side of the development so that it can align with what's going on the other side. Does that, are you following?
I got a little lost.
So the discussion is, if you can't secure an easement along here to possibly bring the pathway, move it from the north side of the street to either the south side or along this open space boundary. I'm thinking you guys are thinking south side, and then drop it down to the south at some point and run along the southern boundary to try and continue the canal pathway that will be coming from the west side.
Okay.
But what if we just jogged it and left it in the alignment through the subdivision it is? Because I've got concerns of trying to put it back there in the back of them lots for one. I mean, behind them lots, and then you get along that canal. We know that canal leaks, it's wet. We don't know, it's a different property owners own it, plus with the easement of the canal. But if they come across from their existing one, come up along 4700, tie into that, and then in the future, they could bring it back if it ever tied back along the canal one.
It
At
would,
least it's all in the front of lots and not in the backs of lots.
and for me, I prefer them in the back of lots because there's less interruption of the pathway. Because I see the pathway as more of a transportation recreation corridor so that you can move freely, and the more driveways and road crossings. So I think that's a viable option if there is a problem going through the backside of the properties, but functionally, I guess I have just a different opinion on the functionality of the.
Oh, I see your point with that functionality. It's just, I have a lot of concerns about the backs of them properties when it comes to that.
You're
Just given the,
concerned with flooding and
yeah, the
proximity to the
water.
canal.
I think I have a similar concern
Okay.
as well. I don't hate the idea of the comment made how we kind of put a sidewalk where that long stretch of pathway is, and kind of split the difference and put something in escrow for future development. I'm super comfortable doing that. I think it makes sense because, you know, our rezone that got approved, that's going through preliminary approval right now, is tying into that canal and kind of that master regional pathway. So the flow of it in the future makes more sense for me to just keep it where it is, even though the property owners right now may not be as cooperative as we would like. I think, you know, 10 years down the line, the flow of these pathways will make a lot more sense.
So I guess that brings up the point right now, the backside of those properties, if we're not comfortable putting it that far, I mean, that's pretty far away from the canal at this point. And if you're afraid it's not far enough, is it ever going to go through at that point? And we might need to make sure and plan it somewhere else.
Planning commissioners, can I offer maybe a
Yes.
alternative? What if we secure an easement on the southern part of the property, align the canal? We don't build anything in there yet. Let them do just curb, gutter, and sidewalk up along the roads instead of a full pathway. That'll save them a little bit of money in exchange for securing the property for a future pathway.
Okay.
And then we work with a canal company, build that up so that we're not dealing with flooding issues. We could work on getting grants and whatnot to make that happen. Plus, property on the south side of the canal, the property owner of that is actually in the room today, and there may be some ability for the two property owners to coordinate and maybe, I don't know, zigzag the canal, but maybe it's on one side, then it's on the other side, or, you know, something like that. So
Okay.
maybe just secure the property, and if it doesn't happen to materialize in that particular easement, at least we had it and we tried. Maybe it materializes on the other side with other property owners.
So
Okay.
Charlie, are you saying that we would require them to only have a 4-foot rather than a 10-foot pathway along that long stretch if they get that easement?
It'd be 5. So if they
5.
did, if it was a pathway on one side and a sidewalk on the other side, the sidewalk could be 4. But if it's just sidewalks on both sides, it'd be 5 feet.
Okay.
Right. And one more observation, just in case this goes missing. There needs to be a pathway on 4700 West as well.
But what's got to be kept in mind is if somebody decides they want to build something in their backyard, that they don't come in with a petition to get rid of that right away, and it gets approved along the way.
We've done that before, so we want to be cautious.
Mhm.
Yes.
So the staff recommendations don't have the pathway along 4700 listed, do they? I'm not sure. I've got to get there.
I don't.
It's part of it's in red, right?
Yeah, I think
Oh.
that was staff recommendation.
Oh,
We'll-
okay,
we'll
so it
be
is part of
sure.
staff.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's just something we missed. So we'll be sure to add it.
And then, and we'll still want to have the pathway that runs parallel to 4700.
Yeah.
It's just the one, we'll do an easement for the other direction. Is that kind of what everyone's thinking?
Just so I'm understanding, would the easement just go straight, or is it gonna still zigzag around?
I think it would just be how many feet of the back of those properties would we need for the easement along the canal?
Sorry, I'm tangled up over here. It depends. If we used our street connectivity standard, we would want 30 feet. If there's going to be solid fences, it would be 15 feet right of way. If they had 30% opacity of their fences, so maybe every third slat is missing in a slatted fence or something like that.
Where there's open space on the other side, do you think we need that full 30 feet, no matter what the fence is?
I don't think so. Where you got the whole canal, I'd
Yeah.
say just make sure you have a little bit of buffer. So if it's 15 feet, usually that's so you have 2.5 feet on both sides plus 10-foot pathway. So, maybe it's just a 12-foot right of way or 12.5-foot right of way.
And
Okay.
I will add on to that, our Windmill West project, we are utilizing that open canal and plan to have it open along that regional pathway. So it could be something similar
Mhm.
to what we're already doing. We're talking to them right now.
Okay.
So
So do we want to do a 15-foot easement? 12.5, 20? Okay. Well, I'm just like half feet. Are we asking for half feet easements? Okay.
Those 6 inches mean a lot.
yeah,
Those 6 inches are important. All right. Just making sure. I'm rounding. Okay. All right. I think those are all my questions.
Anything else on this item? I guess I just want to clarify. So we're leaving in all the recommendations, but we're just moving that one to the backs of the lots through an easement, correct?
and I believe adding the 47.
Oh, and 4700.
Pathway connection.
And then the only other question is, what about this property out here from 47 to their first lot, to the first lot in this subdivision?
Space marked. Do we want to do one pathway, an easement along the side of, the east side of, sorry, west side of 60? Make sure we have.
So it'd be on south and the west side.
It's depends with Ben,
And then the open space.
then down here. We don't know. But that does fit into it.
I'm thinking, right, if that happened, if you went around that property, who's gonna put the sidewalk in front?
Oh,
Because we're wanting it to connect to the west side. Ideally,
we have to, there will be a pathway all the way along 40.
for all of his new development, is he required to do it in front of the existing house?
Charlie, what about that existing? Would they have to put the pathway in front of that?
Does it wouldn't make sense to have one house not have sidewalk, right?
If we're just going for an easement and we're kind of deferring infrastructure to a later time, there's a lot of other things that are going to need to be worked out anywhere. If you were to ask the developer for a pathway along, or excuse me, a right of way along 60, we could always write it to say that it immediately reverts to the landowner if the right of way is secured through that lot where the house is. So if that landowner does want to work with us and put a pathway through, maybe there's a way we could swap that easement. But I wouldn't, at this point, if we're not going to build that pathway, we probably don't need something in front of that house. Unless you want to see, and it may be worth it, if their pathway on the west side is crossing the street, and we have a north-south pathway here on 4700, it might be a good connection. So there might be some ability to work with that. I don't know how wide UDOT's right of way is there. And so that might be a challenge, but you could always make your intent or desire known, and we'll just work within the confines of what we can legally do.
I think when we're asking for just an easement, we're not constructing it, it'll be.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I don't feel like it's his responsibility. That's not part of his development, so.
Yeah. Thoughts?
Just so I understand, what you guys are asking is from our south-north road going westward, you're asking for a 12.5-foot easement running along the bottom edge of our property.
So basically 60, like where lot 60 is.
Well, so after this road, you're just asking for 12.5 feet all along this, right?
And then the others too. That whole south boundary, southern boundary.
Will you
Oh,
please
the
make
whole
sure you're
thing.
speaking into the microphone? Thank you.
So the whole southern okay,
Boundary, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, commissioners. If nothing else, I'm ready for a motion.
Okay, I will motion that we forward a positive recommendation to the county commission for file ZMA 2024-09, an application to rezone approximately 25.69 acres of land located at approximately 600 north, 4700 west from the A1 zone to the R115 zone. I make this motion with some recommendations, including the recommendations from the packet 1. And that was the concept plan update as stated in the packet. The recommendation 2, parks, open space and trails will have some adjustments. So I will read that section. So A, obligate applicant to install all pathways outlined in the development agreement. If phased, ensure a proportionate amount of pathway and opportunities, I think that's how you say it, is installed both within the phase and allow or I'm trying to think. And along the south boundary of the development from properties 60 through 55, mark a 12.5-foot easement and also an easement on the west side of property 60, 12.5 feet as well. All the adopted 10-foot paved or concrete pathway standards in the land use code. Section B stays as stated in the packet, as well as recommendations 3 and 4. And this comes with the findings also stated in the stated in our packet.
I just have one clarification on it. It's 600 south, not north.
Oh, is it not right on here?
Yeah,
Okay.
600 north would be a further, so we get that right.
Could I get another clarification, just so I'm on the same page?
Hold on, I got a motion.
Oh, sorry.
So, all right, I've got a motion on the table. I got a second. A motion and a second. Commissioner Clance,
Aye.
Commissioner Neville,
Aye.
Commissioner Wickern,
Aye.
Commissioner Favero,
Aye.
Commissioner Andriotti, Commissioner McCormick. Chair votes aye as well. That passes. Okay, sorry.
No, no worries. So with the motion, did you guys want us to do that north and east pathway? Is that part of it?
Yeah.
Ones that are included.
Okay. Okay. And with that easement, are we improving it or is that just for a future? Okay, that sounds good. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Next item is going to be item number 2, ZTA 2024-03. This is going to be a discussion and possible decision regarding Taylor Landing Subdivision rezone. A rezone of approximately 78 acres from A1 zone to the R115 zone and approximately 32 acres from the from the A1 to the O1 zone at approximately 3,900 west, 1,800 south. Director Grover?
This is another legislative item. You'll be making a recommendation to the county commission, and you'll need to open and close the public hearing on this. And Mr. Ewert will be presenting. And I am going to need to be excused. Charlie's going to be covering the remainder of the meeting for planning.
This isn't listed as a public hearing.
It should be on the agenda
It's on
as a
the,
public.
yeah, and we've noticed.
Okay.
The original agenda didn't say public hearing, but there was an amended.
Oh, I guess I should read the amended. I'm looking at this one, Charlie. You give me too many packets.
Sorry.
These people probably say, what's this guy reading? It's nothing like what it says on the information they got.
Commissioners,
Thanks, Director Grover.
Thanks for having us. I just wanted to give props to Tammy. That was a great job on that project. Tammy's proven herself to be really good at being able to pivot in the moment. And sometimes with some of these more challenging ones where we're talking about new policy and new law, it could, things can go all the way down to the wire and things can get changed. So good to be flexible. Taylor Landing, general plan amendment and rezone. Last time you guys looked at this, you tabled it. Primary reason you tabled it was because they need to do a general plan amendment. They have submitted for that general plan amendment. We're just included it in this in the memo that you guys have. Secondary reason why it was tabled, I think, and I don't know that if it was quite captured in the motion, was a better discussion about open space donation to the park district. The landowner, in exchange for being able to develop their phase 6, they are willing to donate 22 acres to the park district. We've worked with the landowner a little bit more on finding ways to up that donation. And they've got some water that they could transfer over to the park district as well. As far as the rest of your packet goes, there's some a little flexible idea about what could or couldn't happen with the rest of the development rights. If the entire property, the entire Taylor Landing subdivision, including all the parts that have already been developed, if it was rezoned to the R115 zone, there's about 89 additional lots that could have come out of that property. But we wouldn't have allowed that to happen unless there was exemplary connectivity, street connectivity, pathway connectivity. And I thought, well, hard to retrofit things, but maybe there's a way they can earn back some of those lots as long as they don't put them in this subdivision. So they're not affecting the landowners who this was already approved for phases 1 through 3 at the number of lots that they have, but that they're moved to a different location. So a transferable development right, essentially. What you see in your packet, there's a table there where staff is suggesting a possibility for them to have weighted connections, pathway connections, street connections, and they get essentially paid development rights if they make those connections to essentially retrofit phases 1 through 5. If you look through them, the compensation, I guess, the TDR compensation for phases 4 and 5 are a little bit smaller, a little bit less than the compensation for phases 1 through 3. And that's because phases 1 through 3 exist. Phases 4 and 5 have just been approved. They're turning dirt, but there's a lot of flexibility and movement they can do in phases 4 through 5. So I'm looking at this 2 different ways. Number one, is there enough of an open space contribution for phase 6 to occur? Phase 6 is proposed to occur right on phase 4 and 5 open space. So in other words, that 4 and 5 open space would be given up in exchange for the park to have 22 additional acres for a total of 32 acre park, plus some water to help irrigate it. So question for you guys is that valuable enough? Is that an equitable enough exchange? I had a good conversation with the developer. I did put some math together just to look at the math. I didn't originally do the math on this because I thought water rights mean a lot. The park acreage means a lot to the park district. And so making sure that there's a way to irrigate that, even if it's not in total, even if it's only in part, I thought was a really valuable consideration. And so I didn't even look at the numbers, but we just talked in the pre-meeting that maybe you guys want to look at what do the numbers look like. So remind me, Mr. Chairman, how many acre feet of water are assigned to those wells?
Roughly 46.
46, that's what I thought. So if you take the original calculation staff gave you in the staff report from earlier this year, phase 6 has 72 lots. And if we did $7,500 per lot, which is the donation that we're asking for the park district from developers now, if they're not donating land or other in-kind work, $7,500 per lot. So that's a $540,000 donation that you can consider. So let me back up. Sorry. If we did $7,500 per lot, we would be expecting a $540,000 donation to the park district. Adding in the lots from 4 and 5, if you do feel like that needs to be part of this calculation, that would add an additional $472,500 for a total of $1,012,500 would be. I see a cocked head. That might mean I did my math wrong, but essentially the donation value should be right about $1 million
We'll settle on
Okay, that's it. Plus or minus 100,000, it's not my money. Just kidding, Aaron. Aaron's in the room. He'll hang me later. With that in mind, what we might expect, if we're looking at senior water rights, assuming senior water rights go for $7,500 per acre foot, we might see $345,000 coming out of that at 46 acre feet. If they are junior water rights at $3,500 or so, and just rough math, we're looking at $161,000. So with the original estimation that staff gave on the 22 acre donation, given what the assessor's value has historically been on these types of open spaces, the 22 acre donation is about a $669,000 donation. If you add that in the senior water right, that'd be about $1 million. So that might pencil out really well. If you only add in the junior water right, you're adding $161,000 to the 669, which would be $830,000. So maybe there's a deficit there.
Wait, will you clarify? So the land without water designated as open space, you believe is worth nearly $700,000?
Yeah, so the assessor's office was appraising that at about $30,000 an acre.
Was the zoning correct on that? Like those numbers, I
Yep.
don't.
So
see
what I did
some-
was I pulled the open space parcel, the value of open space parcels of other cluster subdivisions and other PRUDs that have those open space parcels, and just looked at what the assessor is assigning those open space parcels. Now, the assessor's office, if you go talk to them, and I did have a brief conversation with someone in the assessor's office, there's a potential for a rezone. There's a potential for things to change. And so they still estimate high on that. If you were to buy that property yourself just for farming purposes, it's not very likely you're going to be spending $30,000 an acre, probably quite a bit less. So admittedly, the donation value may seem high, but it is what the property is being generally assessed at right now.
Or taxed.
Taxed at, assessed through the assessor's office who applies the tax. Yeah, sorry. I don't know if there was a better way to say that.
Okay.
So that said, whether it's junior or senior water rights, you're somewhere between $830,000 and $1 million, $1,014,000. It's a balancing act. There is a lot to be said for land and water that is in hand right now. What's the statement? One of the hands better than two in the bush, I guess. I always get my metaphors mixed, and so I'm proud of myself for doing that one right. And so, I know the park district would value that acreage at a lot higher. When the park district is looking at this, they're looking at what is it going to cost us to get a 32 acre park in the middle of this area that is developing. And so if they were to go across the street and buy that land, I mean, they're looking at significantly more amounts of money to purchase that acreage. And so to them, they feel like this is worth it because they're willing to pay a little bit more considering the alternatives. But you guys know the story behind the rest of the value. So I'm just going to blast through the rest of this because I think you guys know the details on the rest of it. We're recommending, staff is recommending that the entire Taylor Landing be rezoned to the R115 zone. If you're removing some open space out of it, it just makes sense for the whole thing to go R115. All of the existing lots would be conforming with the R115 zone. None of them would be conforming with the A1 zone, and non-conforming lots, while they're still allowed to exist, it's hard to get land use permits to expand their uses and stuff like that. So they kind of get locked down on what they can do until that zone is changed. So I think it'd be beneficial for the landowners who are in that area if we just did R115 and abandoned the whole idea of a cluster subdivision for this area. If you don't want to do that, we could just look at phases 4 and 5 open space, rezoning that, and then phase 4 and 5, which the developer is the landowner for that. So we could exclude phases 1 through 3. And then the 32 acre park would be zoned open space or community space. This is what the current future land use map, this is what the existing future land use map says. It says that should be open space, and it was colored that way because the original cluster subdivision was approved with it being open space. We didn't expect at that time for that to change. And then things did change. So if you do recommend approval for the future land use map, you'd see that property. That color is kind of a terrible shade. It's supposed to match the other yellow, where essentially you're just changing it from green to yellow. It wouldn't overlap the street. Street would still be there. It's the same presentation I gave before. Rezone review, we're looking at how does this comply with the general plan as it is? Well, we know if it does get changed, the general plan recommends some medium to large residential lots. It also recommends density averaging. If you put our R115 street connectivity incentivized rules into play here, you've got both medium to large residential lots and density averaging that could potentially lead to what the developer has proposed. You can see over here in magenta, hard to see my cursor there. The upper right hand side in magenta, that is phases 4 and 5 open space, or what could otherwise be phase 6 if the rezone and the general plan amendment is approved. The applicant has agreed to, with the park donation and the water donation for the park, has also agreed to extending 3900 south all the way to 2200, not just for a half width, but for the entire width, excluding sidewalk and utilities on the eastern side, which sounds like that was kind of a handshake agreement between the developer and the landowner there. The landowner, I believe, wants his fence to still be right there. So when that adjacent landowner to the east decides to develop their land, if that ever happens, then they'll be responsible for whatever other utilities are remaining and for the sidewalk to occur. We did get the applicant to agree to put the pathway on the west side, since it's the side that's being developed right now. Not completely ideal, because there are expected to be some lots here, so we will see some driveways. However, on the northern side of 3900 through Stagecoach, we've got a lot of driveways that are intersecting with that anyway. And so it just might be one of those streets that have really cool pathway where people just have to be careful when they're backing out of the driveways. There's a few other things that we're asking for of the developer. For example, where pathways do cross streets, we're asking for bulb outs. We've even asked for rapid flashing beacons. In discussing with the developer, maybe one or the other is appropriate. Maybe both is not. I like both, but I think if I had my druthers, it would be the bulb out. The bulb out, I think, puts the person on the curb out there a little bit more so you could see them as you're driving. You're going to start tapping the brakes a little bit faster. But if you don't have a bulb out, you definitely want to have those rapid flashing beacons, because you don't know what they're doing when they're standing over there on the sidewalk. Are they ready to cross, or are they just loitering there, right? If you guys do the density buyback idea, we could see any one of these other additional connections being made that you see in here. Kind of hard to see on the small screen, but 1920 South right now in phase 5 is proposed to be a cul-de-sac. We recommend that be stubbed to the south. You're going to see on your next agenda item why we're recommending that being stubbed to the south, because these properties in here are in consideration for a rezone with a potential street connection as well. So that connection would allow these guys to get in and make a full street connection and benefit from the connectivity incentivized rules. And if we did that, might as well put a pathway along the north side of that. Working with the park district, we've talked to them about reserving a pass through, a cut through for a trail through the park, which could line up right here with their phase 6 and Winston Park. It was just on the commission agenda again today. They tabled it again today. However, they did approve the general plan amendment proposed with Winston Park. And so it sounds to me like they're getting a lot closer to being more comfortable with that agreement. That agreement would require Winston Park folks to buy a pathway easement between those two lots right there. So we'll have a pretty good pathway, pretty good clean shot going across and then down to the south. I had a good conversation with a couple of the owners on this side over here. Specifically, I did stop and talk to Mrs. Favero and mentioned to her that, you know, if this road stubs to her property, she might have the potential of getting a little bit more out of it if she were to rezone in the future. She said she was going to think about it and talk to her family, and she got back to me and said they're not interested in having a stub or having it go through the property. So figure just let that curb where it is. some of these other little connections in here, the orange or the yellow ones are the ones that they would be buying back. White ones and these other dashed lines over here, purely hypothetical. Actually, this one isn't as hypothetical because you're going to see that on your next agenda item, but these ideas over in here, and if you see any others that don't exist or that you're a property owner of and you don't agree to, they're purely hypothetical, just looking at ways for other people in the area to benefit from the new R115 zone and the street connectivity incentivized. These guys, these open space areas here where they've got development going on all the way around them, they don't have the benefit of these three landowners here where they could work together to get that street stubbed in. It's going to be hard to imagine a scenario where these landowners, if they ever do want to develop their open space in the back, are going to do anything other than a cul-de-sac. So maybe what it is, maybe we can get some really cool pathway connections. That's about up. That in mind, you've got a few options. You can pass on a recommendation for approval. I've got a list of what stipulations, I guess, if you want to call them that, or considerations in the memo that I sent to you that could then go into a development agreement. I've spoken with the developer about most of those stipulations. There's a couple of one I actually massaged just a little bit to make it a little bit more equitable, I think, but others of them that applicant may not love, but may deal with. You may want to chat with the applicant before you go into a public hearing, but a public hearing is required for this to talk about the general plan amendment specifically. Any questions for me?
Questions for staff? I'll kick it off. I don't like the TDRs. I don't think we're ready for TDRs yet. We really don't have, I mean, we discussed it in years past. I'm not saying I'm against TDRs altogether, but I think we need to get our TDR, all of our ordinance and everything in place before we start issuing TDRs down in this part of the valley. I know there's Ogden Valley's had some success with it, and there's probably a good, it's a good avenue to go, but I think we need to get the backside of the TDRs put up, set up right now. I know there's some language it can go in the form base a little bit and some stuff like that, but I just right now I don't feel the TDR should even be considered. This was all platted years ago. Things change. I think, with 4 and 5, we have the ability to make some changes, but 1 through 3 is all built. It's going to be difficult to get some of those trails and some of that stuff through there.
I don't see TDRs in the recommendation, however. It was discussed, but I don't see it in the recommendation.
It should be consideration number 7, I think.
Yeah.
It's the last one where the table is. It's on the next page.
Oh, I'm looking at the old instead of the.
Sorry, my apologies. Yep.
Well, this is the new packet.
But that's the old staff that was the old staff report from our April meeting. Go to the very beginning of this.
So the memo has the old staff report attached to it, just so you could see the detail.
The second part of this is I mean, I'm going to beat this up because it really gripes me. I'm getting closer to, I see the benefit of the open space from the parks because I really want to see a park there. I think there's a lot of good that can come of it. And, kudos. I really appreciate the letter you sent, Lance, walking through what that future of that park's going to be. And you got a good plan there. And I don't know if I still agree with the whole, you're going to get grass to grow on that ground, but guess what? That's you guys' obligation to do. As far as the numbers, I'm with Sarah. That land is virtually worthless, but like you said, to the parks, I can maybe get behind it. I would like to see some more water go along with it. I don't feel, not saying I know what that whole park plan is, but basically you can water about 11 acres with that well water. I don't know if there's a chance to find some more water to get it up to where, I mean, I know the whole 32 acres isn't going to be irrigated, but I'm guessing more than, 11 acres of it is. So, and I think regardless, in my opinion, the connection's got to be made over here in 4 and 5. That cul-de-sac stubs through with that future road, and 3900's got to go in to get my buy-in, but that's my thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, between lots 90, 91, 80, and 79, there is an open space easement platted, but not a pathway. As well as between lots 9 and 10, there might be some pretty easy opportunity for them to get a pathway in there too. Just want to make sure you guys were aware of that.
So it's platted as a,
It's platted as open space.
so why didn't the phases put the pathway in?
Pathway wasn't required. It was just holding a space for a potential pathway in the future.
Well, I guess it's time for the pathway if they want.
There's a lot more development
change
happening
the
in the area.
I'm trying to say, is that part of your recommendation? Is that one of the?
That's one of the TDR buyback things. You guys could just put it in there as stipulation that goes along with it instead of doing the TDRs if you don't want to do the TDRs.
So just remind me, so it's between 9 and 10.
Between 9 and 10 and 79, 80 and 90 and 91.
I mean, we could just recommend that for this to happen,
It's got
it's just got to match this connectivity plan. And then that covers all our bases.
Well, for the paths.
yeah.
It won't match the whole connectivity plan. Right, Charlie?
Right, because there are some connections in there that the rights of way or easements don't exist. There's no open space to put them. And so this would require some retrofitting.
I guess it's a question on your recommendation, Charlie. Why did you want one between 17 and 18? Just easier access to the park where it comes straight instead of going around the end.
Yeah, and if you look at the recommendation, it's anywhere between 17 and 30 along those 4 parcels. There's some homes on those parcels right now. It looked like every other parcel had a home on it. So getting something through there might be a little challenging, especially if you built your home not thinking you'd have a public pathway next door.
Yeah.
But that seemed like a good connection there. Not absolutely essential. In fact, I don't think I weighted it very high on the TDR transfer thing. So you can
They
always
can
go
ride
around.
down the sidewalk and go in the road to the parking lot.
Yeah, you can go out to 39 and around. Yep.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't, I don't like the one right there between 17 and 18. I don't think these ones over here in the corner, like 102 and 99, those ones necessarily need to be there. Or
I'd be
the,
able to connect them to the other community because it's already built out. It would be trying to get easements through people's property.
Which ones?
Ones around lots 101 through 99, 102 through 99.
those
So
aren't built yet.
they would stub into somebody else's open space. Yeah. If there aren't,
Oh, but that is open space, so you can.
it's
Okay.
platted.
Okay.
Potentially, if they go through the same process to flip the open space for residences, they wouldn't be able to qualify for the street connectivity if there isn't connectivity for them to connect to.
Isn't that trail already back there though?
There is a trail, that white line that runs parallel to the red line. There
Mhm.
ends right here.
Hey, thanks, but
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the order of operation was when this was approved. I know Sunset Equestrian, which is these lots over here. It was a much larger proposal at one time. This was like their phase 1, I think, or an earlier phase, which required that pathway to go in. When Taylor Landing was platted phase 3, I don't know why that wasn't picked up and connected to the street.
but basically something needs to be connected right there.
Or maybe we donate the pathway back to the landowners. I mean, it's up to you guys on how to do that. There is sidewalk that does exist out there right now. To some degree. I don't hope it's all there.
Okay.
Yeah, the white line. Yes. All right. We ready for a public hearing?
I do have one quick question for Charlie before we open that.
There's never a quick question with Charlie.
I think Charlie can handle this one fast. So Charlie,
Yes.
in the report, it
Good
says
answer.
that they're only asking for 72 additional lots when they could be asking for like I don't know, 80 something, right? 89 or something like that. By giving them this rezone, they technically would qualify for the others, but we could put it in here that it limited them to the 72, correct?
Technically, yes. No, in order to get the 89, if they really wanted to put 89 in phases 1 through 5, they'd have to replat the whole thing. I mean,
Okay.
most of those are signable to phases 1 through 3, where you have homes right now. So it'd be really hard to get more lots out of phases 1 through 3 right now, especially the way the road's configured.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion to open the public hearing on this item.
So moved.
A motion, do I got a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now in a public hearing on this item. If you wish to speak, please come up and state your name and address for the record. Limit your comments to 3 minutes if you wouldn't mind, just if we've got a large group. We ain't got nobody? Oh, good, somebody.
My name is Brady Wilcox. Sorry, I spoke out of turn earlier. I just wanted to iterate right there where his mouse is shown. That's where the path ends, and it would be nice if that extended across. Many times I walk with my kids, filling up with stickers because you get to the end and you turn around and walk back. There's no other exit to it.
Is it a concrete sidewalk through there?
It is not concrete. It's got really nice gravel underneath the weeds that have grown up. Yeah, we've used it for the horse. We've ridden the horse through there once or twice, and if you have little odds and ends and scooters and whatever the kids could ride across there. I'm okay with gravel. Sidewalk would be nice, but gravel's fine. So that was the only thing I was hoping would be something you'd write in the clause. And I really liked Casey's statement of putting a number or limitation, not being able to do that 84 or whatever number that was. So thank you.
Before you leave, could we get your address for the record, please?
Yeah. I'm on 2028 South, 4300 West. It's the corner lot right there in front of the school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Dave Whitaker. I'm at 3695 West Glenna Way, which is the triangular shaped piece. It's in the bottom right corner of this parcel. Charlie almost got it right. I've not had any conversation with him directly, but he mentioned that we had came to an agreement on the road and the utilities. I have met with the developer twice. I've never been given. He hit me up for some cost or at least if I would participate in the cost of the laterals. I said, if I know what they are and they're very affordable, I would do that, but no one's ever given a number to me or a cost per lot to do that work. So, and he may have to deal with someone who's a better negotiator that's the other owner of that property than I, and she's a lot tougher than I am. So if he does bring that price, bring it cheap, is all I can say. But other than that, I'm not excited about having 3900 West. Do I want more stuff blowing into my hay fields and pastures? Because that's what'll happen. I moved from Main Street, Kaysville, because I just kept busting down my swather with everything that blew off of Main Street. But, I'm not excited about it. Have I ever been one to tell another man what to do with his property? No. But I would like some consideration, at least if we're going to put in that property for the east half of 3900, that possibly we could get those utilities at a very discounted rate. And the other concern is we mentioned there was no sidewalk to be put on that side of the road. I got caught in a little crossfire once in Kaysville where they put in 700 feet of park strip that they expected me to maintain off of Main Street. So I would not want to be bound to do something like that as well. But we've always open to, even though I've always been opposed to development, I've never been one that wants to tell another person what to do with his property either. So again, thanks for your time, all your work you do for us.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this item? Nothing, Lance? I do appreciate the letter you sent, though. All right, with that, I'm ready for motion to close public hearing.
Chair, motion to close the public hearing.
A motion, do I got a second? Lots of seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're out of public hearing. So I agree with Mr. is it Wilcox? His comment. I think that trail needs to be finished. It's there. there's no point for having a trail to nowhere. And so if they tie that in and tie that one in up there,
It could potentially loop it north straight to in phases 4 and 5, where there shouldn't be any plans for homes. Not to say that there aren't, but there shouldn't be any plans for homes there because it's not formally subdivided yet.
turn it up like a 98 and tie it back into the road or something.
Yeah, maybe just to the east of 98.
Yeah. All right, comments for staff?
I just have a question on the process, Charlie. So if the Whitakers haven't come to agreement, that property owner there, for them to have the, what I would consider the major road for this development, how does that work in our process here? Does that, if we approve it, they still have to work that out? And if they don't work it out, then our approval means nothing, right?
Sort of. Let me back into that because I'm
All right,
not exactly
sorry.
sure how to answer the question.
Sorry.
My understanding is the Whitakers own a little bit more than to the center of 3900 West, maybe even a little bit beyond the center of 3900 West. And so if we're looking to keep 3900 West on the alignment of the section line, then there needs to be some kind of exchange of property. The applicant could always push it over onto his side. Until you get down to 2200, it's going to have to curve back over because you do have a street on the south side of the road that it will need to link back up to. So yeah, there will need to be some negotiation. Developer can't go and build a road on Mr. Whitaker's property. I know that our engineer would love to see maybe some stubs because they don't want to see a new road cut into later on. So for those stubs to be made. But just speaking with the developer and he may want to address you guys himself. It didn't sound like the utilities on the east side of the curb is anything that he's hoping to do.
Thank you.
Answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
I mean, my opinion on that, I want to see 3900 go in regardless. If they can work something out, I would agree. I mean, getting the utility stubs in there now, so they're not having to cut a future new road. But I don't want to see that stop that connection from going in. You know, I think Mr. Whitaker, to get the alignment on the south side to line up with 2200, the developer's got to work with him to get that intersection to align. So, I mean, my opinion from us at the planning commission, I think we just need to stipulate that it's got to go in, and then if they can come to an agreement, great. If not,
yeah, I appreciate the clarification because I was under the assumption that it only could work if it went through the Whitaker's properties. I mean, which it does partially, right? I mean, my argument would be that's the residents that it would probably have the most impact to. Well, right?
I think they could build the majority of the road on Heritage's property, which it would just run down the Whitaker's property line until you get to the intersection on the south. That's where it would have to jog to line the intersection, correct, Charlie?
That's correct.
Which might be, I'm sorry, I know.
No, go ahead.
Which might be the ideal thing with your theory, Charlie, with having not a straight line, because then it slows everybody down, right? And their cars.
That is absolutely right. If you've got some little jogs in your road and you don't see long distances, you actually get people going a little slower.
Or they drive really fast and they don't see the people that are crossing the road ahead of them.
That's also
There are two
That's probably more
happens.
common.
But in this neighborhood, I'm gonna say that's what's gonna happen.
Well, cross our fingers, the bulb outs actually constrict the traffic.
Tammy,
quite a
quit
bit.
driving so fast.
I would say ideally it would be best to work with the.
But my question is, what utilities do they have running along that road right now? Is it just,
No, so I think the utility work would be what future utilities Mr. Whitaker would need to develop his property in the future. I
oh,
think
just if he
it's-
decides to develop the property?
Like water and sewer stubs.
Oh, okay. And so at this point, this development doesn't require any utilities going through 40, what is this, 40 something hundred? I don't know.
3900.
3900 West.
Sorry, 3900.
There are some lots. So if you look at
Good
the
flat that.
the blue or the cyan line there are lots
Oh.
between 3900 and that was approved in their original phase 1. I think it's phase 1B. They haven't done it yet, probably for obvious reasons. It's probably 3900, the cost of 3900.
But that isn't Whitaker owned property. That side is
Where the blue line is right now is.
oh, where the
The blue
road
dash
is.
line.
The blue dash.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
They come to the center of that road.
The common property line is very close to the section line, which is generally where 3900 West would otherwise be if we followed all the section lines. So
Okay, and so we're looking for the road to go through. Yeah, I hate the idea of cutting up the road for utilities, but if neither side wants to pay for utilities to develop their land, then we don't really have. I mean, if they want to develop their land, Whitaker can put the utilities in for his advantage on his side. And if they want to work together to do it, great. But I think the important thing would be getting that road through. And utilities, I mean, just to answer the question, we can't negotiate any sort of prices on utilities. That would be just your contractors that do it. The county doesn't have any control of the pricing, just the right of way.
Yeah.
So.
And there may be some consideration that's already happening there.
But he wanted the right price on the stub ins to his property, just to let the developer know.
Yeah. And so I don't think that has anything to do with our
Right.
discussion here.
Right.
So. But we can entirely drop the TDR. And I think it makes sense to rezone everything. So we don't have this random cluster subdivision or A1 that doesn't have a fit. But as far as the equation for what is equitable, I think looking at 4, 5, and 6 together, because they were cluster subdivision together at one point. 6 was open space to justify 4 and 5. So now if we look at all of that together as an R115 rezone, the numbers, yeah, it's hard for me. I think possibly the 700,000 if it had water with it. So I think we can either take the 700,000 or the $100,000 to $300,000 in water, but I think it would be hard to justify the value of the property. I think it'd be hard to justify and say this water is worth up to $350,000 and the land's worth up to 700,000. I think we're giving a little too much leeway on that.
Yeah.
The road will be expensive and valuable. So I think maybe $300,000 for the road in consideration would be reasonable. So
I've got the road connection on 1920 South as well, with a pathway connection between 141 and 140 that they're willing to do.
so if we put those numbers together, sorry, I'm trying to find which page I wrote that on.
So wait, just clarify for me, Sarah.
Yeah.
You feel like the road is an advantage for us, that the fact that they're putting in the road,
Yeah.
the road that's needed for their development?
Is this needed for their development? Is that what we've
They
decided?
wanted to connect over here, yeah.
Oh,
I actually think in that first phase, they could build a half width of that road. So basically we would get a half a road.
so we're getting only a half a road in.
In what the original approval of this was, so
Our
I
half
do
width-
think there's some value in a full
Getting
width
the
of that
whole
road going through.
I agree. Yeah, our half width requires at least 20 feet of asphalt, so it's not a true half width, but getting close to one.
But we're not getting improvements on both sides, just
Nor are you getting curb and gutter on the other
curb
side.
and gutter and
which
sidewalk on the other
causes
side.
Drainage problems. And yeah,
We're not getting the trail or that pathway along the,
So
West
is it really
side
an
either.
advantage?
We're not getting this trail along the west side?
well, no, if we
you only do half.
didn't go with the 3,900,
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
if we don't require that road going through. Okay, so
right
that,
now it's just basically a 4-foot sidewalk and a curb and 20 feet of asphalt,
Yep.
all on the west side.
okay,
And
And
for
so-
me, if I'm looking at the big picture with that aspect, if I want this park to benefit the community, we need to get access to it, right?
Yeah.
Without going clear around. That's a long ways around if you have to go up to 3,500 or 4,300.
Yeah, I think the road and the pathway along the roads very,
Yeah.
I've been stuck on the numbers because I don't agree with their numbers for the open space and that, but when you weigh the overall benefit that can come from this by, actually developing a pathway down an easement that we got an easement for, but nothing there, tying in some of this other stuff, I really think that
I think it balances once we put in all of the pathways and the road improvement. I think I can swallow it when we can just forget about TDR and just look at how it fits into the R115
I agree.
equation that we've been working with. And I think if we require this connectivity plan that's shown in front of us, I think that is equitable.
can I ask a little bit of clarification?
Sure.
With the connectivity plan that's here, some of the lines will need to go through other properties. These
Oh.
two here, maybe not a big deal. Between 70 and 71, 70 has a house going up on it right now. 71 is vacant. currently, but my understanding is they're in the process of review for a home. So that might be a hard connection to make. These two, maybe that's okay, but I'm sure the developer would love to not see them. This one right here on 5, it looks like a really easy connection, but I haven't talked to the landowners there. And so
That should be a road.
should have been. Should have been, yeah.
You and your hammerhead.
Whoa. That was-
Okay, engineering in their hammerhead.
I had an issue with it as well. I did drive down there and it does look like it'd be a really easy jaunt to put in a pathway there, but again, somebody else owns it. So that may be a challenge. So maybe I break this into 2 things. The one thing is, what does the developer have control over? The second thing is, what does he not have control over? Keep in mind that right now Winston Park has not been approved because one commissioner wants them to buy back a lot and build a road connection. And so this idea of buying back from somebody else, I almost think this commissioner may even be interested in buying it back, even if there was a house on it. That's a bit of there's a lot to that. There's a lot more value to that. Somebody once told me, don't let great be the enemy of good. And I think good would be getting some good connections in 4 and 5, and then where there are already open space easements.
That's what I meant, the easements.
Okay.
I don't fully understand how to fix this dead end.
I just think they need to put something and make, whether it's by 98, 99, somewhere in that corner, there's got to be a connection going back to the street.
And it looks like there is right here.
Yeah.
Talking about this, so that should solve the dead end.
And I don't care where it is in that corner, but at least that make that pathway continuous somewhere over there, Charlie.
Okay.
So it looks like in this plan, that is already taken care of. Okay, so it's not something we need to add to this connectivity plan.
Yeah, I would agree. Add it to the existing easements and then everything else as you've shown is my thoughts.
Do you guys care what the surface of that connection is? I thought it was sidewalk out here, but sounds like it's just crushed. Yeah.
I think some sort of a improved hard surface more than because we're just going to be faced of more of the weeds and the goat heads and everything else. But if it's
Well, all of these
hard
pathways
surface,
will be the 10-foot asphalt pathways, correct?
Yeah, the one that's out there right now is not.
Right.
I don't think we can make them do anything with that
Yeah,
existing one.
that's outside of this scope. One question of the commissioners. Charlie loves his solar panels and batteries. He likes to just sneak that into the report every time.
It's not in. It's out.
Did you take it out? It wasn't the one before.
It's not in the. It was in the one before. It's not in the memo. Yeah.
Did you think I'd pull?
He don't
say
sneak
something?
it. At least it's part of the general plan.
It is part of the general plan, but the county commissioners have already told us they're
I'm
not
just worried
interested.
about affordability. Not that's a bad idea, but when we come to an affordability, it's a big chunk. So
Absolutely. So sneaky.
Any questions for the developer? Do you want to come up? Come on up.
Aaron Robertson, 2650 Washington Boulevard, Ogden, Utah. I've appreciated the conversation we've had and that we're still here talking about this. Just as a point of conversation and I think it bears to mention, we were approved, we were moving forward. Parks Department said, hey, we want a big park here. And they came in and talked to staff, brought us in to talk to staff to figure out how to make that happen. I think that sourcing of this conversation carries weight with how we're ending up where we are. Mr. Edwards and everyone's had kind of different numbers and how we get there. And I'm looking at the numbers too. Bottom line is, when we do the math, if I can make a pencil, we're happy to participate and make it work. And if it doesn't, then we're not motivated. We'll keep with our current approvals. The expansion of 3,900 is very expensive because of the canal and things that are there. Obscenely so. it's gonna cost me twice as much for that half of the road as the first half. Under the proposal we have, we can make it work because, we have ground that was gonna be open space that now we're getting developed. I think some of the connections and things, Charlie and I have arm wrestled over this. He's done an excellent job of trying to go out there, put boots on the ground and figure things out. I think you may underestimate the amount of effort Charlie has put into trying to figure this out. That's not to say that I agree with what he's proposing. But kudos to Charlie for really trying to dig in and figure out what may or may not work. I say that as a preface to this conversation of TDRs. You guys have TDRs in your code. It is something that exists, whether we want to deal with it or not. And because you don't have your code fleshed out, we're equally frustrated with the concept because there's not as much detail there as we'd like. However, we do own property that is a TDR receiving zone that was previously owned by another group that had a plan that was approved for it. So from our perspective, the TDRs become very important, simply because it allows us to develop ground on another parcel where we've had approvals expire. We would prefer to negotiate within the realms of your existing code, so we know what we can and can't do, and use those TDRs and put some density there as your master plan promotes. It seems easier than trying to come in retroactively and trying to zone via development agreement. But we're happy to do that too if the TDRs seem too scary at this point. I think Charlie's done a great job of trying to identify what can and can't work for TDRs and some of those benefits. We, quite frankly, based on his proposal, some of those we will do, some of those we won't. Based on your proposed connections and things, most of that we would get done via the TDR proposal that Charlie's put in. I would say nearly 100% of what you guys are requiring and asking for, based on the conversation that I've heard up to this point, you would be getting via the TDRs that transfer that Charlie is put forth. Without that, I'm going to go back and do my math and run my calculators and look at my cost benefits and say, does this work or does it not? I think Lance has done a great job of, reaching out to professionals and third parties to say, is this park feasible? Can we make it work? It's a huge value to the community. We want to be supportive of what the Parks Department's doing. In certain cases, I prefer just to cut the check. It's easier. I don't have to argue about numbers. In this particular instance, we're happy to give the property under terms that make sense to us. So before we totally bag the TDR conversation, before we totally walk away from some of the work that Charlie's put into this, I'd caution that we look at that a little bit closer because he's done a good job. And for us, there is value to those TDRs because we do have a piece of property that is currently designated within your master plan as a TDR receiving zone, and we'd like to put them there. And really kind of effectuate the state's plan with their attainable housing. There's a lot of conversations Charlie are trying to have. But the short answer is I've got 4 different projects with different development agreements and things, and it's simpler to keep them separate. But the TDRs is the way that I can carry something from one to another to effectuate what we're trying to get done. Outside of that, I think we are trying to be very amenable. We do have David, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up my names, but the neighboring property owner, he is right. He has been very workable. It's been a pleasure to work with. I do owe him costs on those connections for laterals. We can get those to him and we can work that out. My confidence that I can work something out with him is relatively high, but not done yet. And it's never done till it's done. But we do have a current plan to have that road go through as a 50+10 road. So we have the asphalt necessary. We're willing to build the rest of it and it makes sense. We like what this does, specifically on the bulb outs, and looking at that and cost benefit and what we've seen other places. We prefer to do the bulb outs instead of the flashing lights. We don't have any other lights in here. This is a dark sky ordinance. We like the idea of the bulb outs. It does constrict traffic. It does slow people down. It does make a visual thing that people can stand there. People understand that people are trying to cross. We're supportive of that, even though they are pretty costly from our standpoint. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I'm happy to answer specific questions on anything, but wanted to make sure I got my general feel of some of the work that's gone into this up to this point.
I guess I got a question, but it's more for Charlie. I'm just trying to figure out the TDR number a little bit more if we want to go down that road.
Sure.
So Charlie, help me understand this. So if you exclude phases 1 through 3, because I don't think there's any TDRs that should come out 1 through 3. The open space is there in that. So as I try and run the numbers here, as I look at phases 4 and 5, we're talking roughly 21 acres, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I add in the future potential phase 6, we're talking another 24 roughly acres, right?
Yeah, let me
For a total about 45 acres.
pull it up in the, let's see. In your original staff report, we did have a table that had all of this in there. Let's see. Man, who writes this stuff?
Based on my math, we're using the 3rd acre density. There's no TDRs available.
So let's zoom in here just a little bit more. So this is phases 1 through potential 6, so phase 6. So this bottom line, the 72 lots, that's all phase 6. So everything else is 1 through 5. That said, so lots that are allowed in the R115 zone total is 304.
So, but you've got phases 1 through 3 in there, and
Yep. And
in my
there's
opinion, 1 through 3 is built, done. The open space has been given.
Yeah.
If we look at just 4, 5, and 6, you got 31, 32, so you got 63, 71. So you're talking what's that, 434 units, right? In the R3, if we rezoned it to the R115. 4, 5, and 6, we're talking 134 units.
sorry, doing math in my head here. That's 3, that's only 2. 70. Yeah, roughly.
So really, they're getting the density from the R115 zone with what's proposed. Actually, they're getting more because you've got currently in phases 4 and 5, you've got 59 lots, right? And 72 lots.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you're talking that.
Yeah, the biggest chunk. So phases 1 through 3. I mean, you could see the difference here. So the number of lots they got on phase 3, 35, they could have gotten 76. Phase 2, they built 20, they could have gotten 34. Phase 3, 28, they could have gotten 61. So that's where the big chunks are coming from. You're right.
But if we're going to start playing in all those numbers, then you got to take and add the parks equation. Then I'm going to take that and times it by the 304, not the
7,500 times 304. Yeah, significantly.
You know, you're talking significantly amounts. That's why I'm just, in my opinion, that's a wash.
Yeah.
But to do the rezone and to give them the lots, look at the number of the 134 lots, or what's this? That's 131 lots right now that they could get out of the potential 134.
Yep.
So,
3,
okay.
3 is the difference. That's
We give them 3 TDRs to move somewhere, but all of the math makes sense based on this 131 number to the equation to the parks and everything else. So in my opinion, phases 1, 2, and 3 they're built, they're done, they're developed. And I don't know what you guys' thoughts.
I'm the same way. There you.
I agree.
So I think, they're either way, we look at it, there's nothing available there.
Yep.
So
I can see that.
But I think, that doesn't mean, I don't support moving forward with what we got in front of us, but I think the numbers are there without TDRs.
Yeah, I could certainly validate that. As I was looking at the numbers, I was thinking if they do get transferred into a village area, that could be a pretty good boost for that village area. But it's certainly just one idea, definitely not the way it has to be.
Do we have designated areas where TDRs can be purchased from? I thought that was
We do.
an issue.
Well, we have a receiving zone. We don't have.
We don't have a
don't
donating
have-
zone.
We do.
Yeah.
We do now?
Base.
But you have to have a form-based zone to put it into. Form-based is your receiving zone, and then the A1, A2, and A3 zones are the sending zones. And so Mr. Robertson would have to donate his TDRs or transfer his TDRs while it's the A1 zone. Otherwise, once he's got the new zone, it wouldn't qualify.
But with those TDRs, let's go that road a minute. We're going to get pathways that are completed. We're going to get roads put in that don't exist in the 1, 2, and 3 phase.
Right.
So
Potentially.
it's not like you're not getting something for the TDRs. Now, is the amount of TDRs right or not? That's the question. And because look, here's my conundrum with this thing. We've clustered this developable part of this block to death. It looks like hell. It does. It's been developed this way, and then it's been developed that way, and it's been developed the other way. Now, we just spent hundreds of millions of dollars on a school directly west of this. What do we want this community to look like right here across the street from this school? That's what it comes down to me with. And right now, I don't like the way it looks. Now, the trade-off is what am I willing to give up to make it look better? And again, that goes back to is the 89 TDRs the right amount? Is it not the right amount? Well, we can have conversation about that. And that's why I wonder, ready to make this decision yet tonight. So to me right now, this is still negotiable, and we're not at a point. We've had a public hearing though. So now maybe that we've had the public hearing, we could move forward, even if we decided to table this so that we could have some real conversation about this. Because I don't think we're there yet. I really don't. I don't want to completely excuse the TDRs, even though I realize and I agree with everybody up here that we're not ready to handle them yet. But at the same time, I want to be proud of what this looks like. And I'm not proud of the way this looks right now. Here's my 2 cents.
Are you okay with the proposal though, in front of you?
I'm prepared. I'm okay with a proposal, but maybe it's not quite all the way to where it should be.
But I mean, just the layout and the connectivity
Yeah.
plan.
Oh, yes.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering is
Oh,
if,
I'm sorry. Yes. Yes.
if we came to arrangement tonight that got this, that would be acceptable.
If we can get to that, if we can get to there from here, that's my thing. I mean, you really got to go out and experience this to see what it looks like. And the gentleman that got up and spoke about the path that's covered with weeds and goes nowhere. How ridiculous is that? And really disrespectful to the property owners that have bought there.
And I see your point, but I just don't see there's a lot of benefit. I mean, we've got a couple easements in 1, 2, and 3 that are already platted as easements that we can get some connection on. But there's really nothing else we're gaining from 1, 2, and 3 to put that density to it, I guess.
Well,
I mean, we already decided that one between 17 and 18 is probably not needed. This one over here between 71 and 70 is not necessarily needed because they can make that connection tie up into phases 4 and 5. Between 9 and 10, that's already an easement, correct, Charlie?
Yeah, there's common area there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then between 79 and 80, that one as well, right? Or does that one have to be?
Yes, 79, 80, there is one there.
But really, the 2 main trail connections or connectivities we need, there's easements on that it's already open.
Right. Well, you're getting this road, right?
But I mean, they got to do that to get the RE1 or the R115 zone anyways. If we're going to go to rezone
Just
that.
for 6.
Yeah. Well, just even to 4 and 5. I mean, if they want to rezone that it's kind of an all or nothing in my opinion, though. So you could call it 4, 5, and 6 all as one or not, but to get that R115, now I'm talking like you in a. But I mean, to get that zone, you got to have that connectivity in there as part of the general plan anyways. So I don't know. I agree though. I mean, we can have some more discussion. I'm not against tabling it. I don't know if you want.
I think this cleans up a lot of what we did in the past.
Yeah, it gets rid of almost all the cluster over here.
Hmm.
I mean, I like Charlie's
So,
proposal as well.
How much more you want to talk about?
Well, here's another wrench to throw. I'm sorry, Cameron. Excuse me. One of the questions that was brought up in Charlie's report, I believe, was should this have a general plan amendment first? So are we putting the cart before the horse by even having this on the agenda rather than the general plan amendment? I guess is my question. So maybe this
All
really,
one.
what's, sorry?
It's all looped into one. The way it was.
So the way this is presented, it's going to change the general plan and that.
Yeah, if
And I
you,
thought
if
our
you give a
process had to
positive
be-
recommendation. the
Okay.
general
So
plan
the
will be
it's
included.
for the general plan amendment and the possible rezone.
Okay,
Of
I
it
thought in
also, it's all one.
the past we approved general plan amendment and then this is a second item.
Yeah, no, it's all one in this item.
Okay.
I apologize. When we first produced the agenda, it had slipped my mind that we were supposed to be doing a general plan amendment as well. So we just amended the one item. We usually do list them as two separate things.
Okay.
One general plan, then.
So I'm not crazy.
No.
Thank you.
So in order for it to be a receiving zone, it needs a general plan amendment. So it is not currently.
Correct.
Form base would be the receipt.
Right.
So
But it's
currently it is
to
not
say-
able to receive TDRs.
Not this subdivision, but it's not in a form-based zone, but another development that Heritage owns is in a form base. This would be ascending to the form base.
Oh, they want this to be the donating zone. I'm having the hardest time following what's going on here.
Yeah.
You're there. You're there now.
Maybe just to simplify that question, the general plan and TDRs don't have, this general plan amendment and TDRs don't have anything to do with each other.
Yeah.
The rezone. Potentially, correct. Because they would have to
Rezone
send the
could-
units prior to the rezone if they're gonna send them.
It will definitely be a more flexible way of doing TDRs than what our current TDR ordinance says, because what we'll be doing is saving TDRs in a development agreement as opposed to assigning TDRs to a property. Where they do have the property, if the property was already in the form-based zone, they could today transfer those TDRs.
In here.
The property's not in the form-based zone right now. So they're just hoping to save them. And we have done things like this in the Ogden Valley. We've got a couple of developments where they wanted to save them because they were ready to send before they were ready to receive. And we did do that. It's just not to the letter of the TDR rules. That's why you have to have a hearing, you have to have a development agreement to make those new rules.
That goes back. I don't think there's a lot of TDRs available, but
Yeah, I think this is some very creative development trade. I don't know that it's following a lot of logic, especially including the phases 1 through 3. I just don't think there's grounds to do that.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
I don't care if we have TDRs in this or not. I want to see it get cleaned up.
Me too.
That's what I want. It'll help.
Sorry, what Richmond American
I
is
mean-
doing over there, building those houses, building those
And the
lots.
Parks Department gets a nice chunk. of
Yes,
that.
I think it's gonna help.
He's got 11 acres worth of water there. That whole thing doesn't need to be in grass. They got turf. He'll have a rodeo in there where it's all dirt anyway, so I think it's a good shade and I think monetarily he's closer, a little bit shy even.
But if I understand correctly, the developer isn't willing to continue unless we do the TDRs.
I didn't hear that.
He was going to pencil it again,
Okay.
right? Aaron,
And-
sorry, speaking for you.
Maybe simplifying the conversation. If I could get 25 TDRs out of this, based on the recommendations you made, we would do that.
What recommendations are you referring?
So we're making the connection between 140 and 141. We'd making the road connection with extending Road 1920, the other path connections within the subdivision as proposed by Charlie, with the exception of lot 70 and 71, and with the exception of lots 100 and 99.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I guess
So with
you're wanting to leave with additional TDRs for making these connections.
So if I did everything that's been recommended tonight by this group, or as proposed as kind of the low hanging fruit to get all this cleaned up, I could make that work with 25 TDRs. I don't need the 89 that Charlie was proposing, but getting some kind of helps tip the scales for us so that it makes a lot of sense for us. And 2 point, we can clean up some of these paths that are just gravel, get those either asphalt or concrete. You know, we're trying to make it work too. And we're pretty supportive of what the Parks Department's doing, and if we need to change some of these connections a little bit, you know, not 140 to 140, but we go up or down, or based on what the Parks Department wants, what planning wants, that's fine. But some of these others, like 70 to 71, that connection, I got a house going up there, I'm not gonna go buy a house to make that connection. Lots 199, I got problems with that just because of my existing contract. Those lots were already under contract. But-
So I guess the difficult impasse I'm at right now is that these connections are what are required just to get the R115 zone. Like currently, that's what we would ask, is to make all these connections just to get the R115. And we're being generous with what's being donated in exchange. Instead of the $1 million, we're taking a lot less than $1 million. So it just depends on how important it is to the commission. So we're asking to go at a lot less than we would normally require for this kind of an exchange, because those connections are not extra bonuses. Those are the connections
Well,
we
you
would
had to
require of
make
our
connections on
115.
stuff that we've already developed and owned, and on stuff that I already have approved. Because remember, I'm looking at approved subdivisions. So while I 100% agree with your statement that this isn't, you know, that some of this would have been required anyway, the flip side is also true. I also already have approved plans that I can
Approved
move
for
with.
4 and 5, but not for 6. We're already
Agreed.
giving 72 lots.
100% agreed.
So the connectivity and the park donation is giving the 72 lots. And so I guess what we have to weigh out is now you're asking for 25 more TDRs in addition. And it just depends on how important it is. Is it fair? I don't know. It depends on whose math you use, but how important is it that we get this done to negotiate what I feel is a financial loss to the community, to the county, but is it worth it for the community gain?
No,
I won't support.
and I don't think the TDRs make this or break us. He's got property there. He's putting 72 lots on it. And it's free now because he's already paid for it. So I think it'll pencil out. At least I hope it does.
Yep.
And we get the park and the water.
So you're okay to give the additional 25 TDRs?
No.
Just the R150, rezone the whole thing to R115, request the connections, the park and
Right.
and that's the exchange you're willing to make.
Where I'm at.
I'm good with that.
I'm just clarify really quick, Aaron. So you said like the trail between 101 and 199, like regardless, you're not going to be able to do that according to you, right?
Between 199, I struggle with that one. Between 101 and 102, I think I can make that one work.
So Charlie, can you think of a creative way to make that work in another way that we would be happy with? Okay.
In my opinion, just something over there. Yeah, we don't need them both.
Okay.
Just somewhere in that corner that path to nowhere gets to path to somewhere.
So he can make it work. So it's good. Okay.
Recommendation says any one of these.
Yeah. 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 So I that's my opinion on that corner, just somewhere.
Yeah, it's hard to do it with the 99 and 100 just because of my frontage.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I
wasn't picking up that we only needed one of them, so I'm glad we clarified.
I mean, it can come over all the way to the edge, just somewhere in that area that you can make work.
As long as your recommendation reads somewhere in that area, make it work.
Give me a connection in that area. Yeah, to the weed path. Okay, anything else?
So with the change, I'm just confused on what we are approving, not approving.
Well, we got a big job for you then, sir.
Cause I'm like, we're not Does anyone, do we need to have a vote on the general plan amendment then, because it's on there?
Doesn't have to be a separate vote, could run with your.
Run with the same motion letter.
All is one, that's how it was noticed, right, Liam? So it can all be one, even though Casey is correct, we generally do them separate.
Okay.
I follow you now.
So we're talking about a general plan amendment.
That's because you're a doctor.
And a rezone.
So, I mean, it could look like we recommend approval of the general plan amendment and or we met forward a positive recommendation of the general plan amendment, as well as the rezone of phases 4, 5, and 6 to the R115 zone with whatever conditions. Something like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
with all
well,
the
we could-
connections shown, except for the ones in phases 1 through 3 that can't happen.
Yes.
That's a easy enough.
But
way
the
to-
general plan amendment, we're talking about two different ones, because there's the general plan amendment for the TDRs, or there's a general plan amendment for the, well, no, we don't
Nope,
have.
No
isn't
general
this
plan
open
amendment for
space?
TDRs.
It all just, the general plan amendment is just as it's shown from A1 to, because all that would change is these are all going to the R115 zone.
The general, that would be the rezone, but we need a general plan amendment
But-
as well.
So this is the general plan amendment. That's
It's
what
from
you're,
open space,
this
right?
to that. Yep, that's all.
Oh,
it would be.
the open space is the general plan amendment,
I follow.
but we're not, but there was discussion of what we're changing that to. We're changing it to medium
Medium.
to large size residential lots. But the request was for to change it to TDR open, no, sorry,
No.
TDRs have nothing to do with it.
well, in order to be the receipt, oh.
This isn't
They
receiving.
were sending, sorry.
So TDRs and general plan, as far as this goes, don't have anything to do with each other.
Okay. Anyone else want to make a motion?
I'm just looking to see if there's a model in the back in the old one.
Yeah, you'll just have to throw in the general plan and
Oh, I've got the model.
Look on page 18 of 29 of the staff report from April. That'll give us
Got it.
a general.
Oh. This is the one I've got.
Mhm.
But it is updated. The recommendations are updated in the new one because it leaves out.
yeah, so if you use the more recent staff in fact, you could just say staff recommendation from the memo dated for today's meeting, excluding the TDR component and including all of the connections in phases 4 through 6 and the ones that are possible in phases 1 through 3.
Memo excluding. But the trails and pathways. Oh, we'll see how this goes. All right. Okay,
Sir, can you throw in the motion that they keep the air conditioning on at this time of night?
We ask that every month and it never happens.
I was thinking this was the hot spot until I sat down over there and was still sweating.
that sounds good. All right.
Liam, could you make that happen? Thanks. All right, you ready for a motion?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I move we forward a positive recommendation to the county commission for file number ZMA 2024-03, an application to rezone approximately 104.54 acres of land located at approximately 3900 west, 1800 south from the A1 zone to the R115 zone. This does not have
Include the O1 zone.
and also a positive recommendation to amend the general plan in this area to, from the, oh, it's right here. And sorry. I'm gonna start this over. I'm just seeing it's here. Okay. I move before deposit recommendation to the county commission for file number ZMA 2024-03, an application to rezone approximately 104.54 acres of land located approximately 3900 west, 1800 south from the A1 zone to the R115 zone, and approximately 31.81 acres of land to the O1 zone as illustrated in Exhibit C. Is this what we're,
Of that memo. Yep.
okay. That doesn't talk about general plan amendment.
You'll want to include that in there as well. It should be in there. If it wasn't, I apologize.
Okay. And in the same zone to amend the general plan from the open space,
It's Parks and Rec
from Parks and Rec
to medium large
to medium large
lot residential.
lot residential. I do this with the, but with the following additions, edits, or corrections. We will include all of the recommendations from today's memo, excluding the TDR components. On number 3, trails and pathways, we will include all connections in developments or phases 4 through 6, and all possible developments in phases 1 through 3. In phases 4 through 6, we are looking just for one option to get us from the gravel pathway near lot 101, not 2 options. We do this with the findings from the packet, from today's packet.
I think the memo from today cited the previous findings.
The previous findings, okay. And
Okay.
that is my motion.
That's a lot in a motion, but you did a very good job. Thank you
I
for
don't
that.
know.
All right, I got a motion on the table. Do I got a second?
Yeah.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Commissioner Clontz,
Aye.
Commissioner Neville. Aye. Commissioner Wickern,
Aye.
Commissioner Favero, Commissioner Andreotti, Commissioner McCormick.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. That passes. Okay. Thank you. Next item. This is going to be item 1.3, ZTA2024-06. This is going to be a public hearing and consideration of a excuse me, proposed rezone of approximately 2.62 acres located at approximately 2000 south, 4300 west from A1 agricultural to the R115 single family residential zone. Charlie?
Find the right one. Okay. So hopefully this one's a little more simple than that last one. A lot of moving parts in that last one. I think you guys did a great job on that. Not an easy job. So this is property. This is 2.62 acres, 2 subdivision lots from the Sunset Equestrian development. So we're just right next door to where we were just talking about. You can see from the proximity map, you've got 1800 south on the north side. That's that northern line. And then you got 2200 south. 4300 west runs right down the center of that screen. And that's what these 2 lots front on. There's an aerial image, and you can see this is all that phases 1 through 3 and 4 and 5 of the development you were just talking about. So it's right next door. So this is the current zone map of the area. That's the proposed zone map of the area. But that's the requested zone map of the area. So all of those crosshatch lines, that's all the property that's been requested to be rezoned to the R115 zone. Winston Park, Taylor Landing, Halcyon Estates. And we're currently in discussions with other developers for even more. So we can kind of see as an island, obviously that's just a small piece of R115, but if you plug it into the context of your previous recommendation, it fits a little bit better. The applicants are working together. We got John Gonzalez originally submitted the application, and Chuck Spurrier signed on to it a little bit later. So that's both of these lot owners, and they own both of the open spaces to the west of their lots. And I did speak with Mr. Davis, Daniel Davis here, about the possibility of whether or not he wanted to join in. I'll let him speak to you guys to that effect in your hearing. And if he does want to join in, enough notice has been sent out that you could just make that amendment in your motion. Here's what the current general plan says. So it says that it should be the medium to large size residential lots. We've talked about all these things ad nauseum, so I'm just going to skip right through. This is what the applicant submitted for concept plan, where they're essentially saying we'll put a road connection through. It looks like they want to make their existing lots maybe a little bit bigger, and then they can put some other lots in there. If it's just the two parcels, Mr. Spurrier's and Mr. Gonzalez, if they do street connectivity, they could get up to 5 lots, but they'd be squeezing that in. They got a drainage easement right there on AP3. And so they will have to figure out how to retrofit that Sunset Equestrian's drainage detention facility. So they're gonna have to figure out how to retrofit drainage to make that work in order to get some lots out of that. If you're looking at road connectivity, we just saw this. You just recommended that stub go to the south here. Mrs. Favero, sorry, I put that line there. Mrs. Favero didn't want any connections or stub in, so we changed it to here so you could ignore that. And then you could see how it could go across Mr. Davis's property, Mr. Spurrier's, and Mr. Gonzalez as far as the roadway alignment goes. Given that it's a small piece of property and they're willing to put a road all the way through instead of doing a cul-de-sac, I think that is good enough for the street connectivity incentivized rules. Because of the street connectivity incentivized, there will need to be a development agreement, and I'll work with the landowners to figure out if you guys are comfortable with the idea. I'll work with the landowners to figure out whether that's going to be 3 separate development agreements, 2 separate development agreements, or 1 combined. They can maximize their density if they do 1 combined, but if it's 3 separate ones, then they won't be maximizing. But regardless, you could anticipate maybe 6 or so lots behind the existing 3 homes that are there if all 3 of them do develop. Any questions?
Questions for staff? If not, let's open the, oh, got something? Oh. I thought you had some insight jump out there. All right, you ready to open a public hearing on this item? Okay, I'm ready for a motion to open public hearing.
Motion to open a public hearing.
We got a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now in public hearing for this item. If anybody wishes to speak, please come up, state your name and address.
All right, Daniel Davis, I'm at 1968 South, 4300 West. I'm that 3rd property. Yeah, we're in a tricky situation because we just moved in and this is all new. And so we are, I feel like I have to have a Harvard law degree to pick up on what's going on or what's being proposed for my property. Appreciate the opportunity to speak though. I came really here to hear what's being proposed. So this is all new to me. I've spoken to Charlie about a few of those things and received something from him at the time of the meeting starting. So I'm still doing my research. So for us, the reason we moved into that property is to have open space. And we had no knowledge or information about the development behind, and we kind of just walked into something that was a little bit of a surprise. That open space was really important to us, and the ability to grow our family there, and then also do some things like a shop and other things in that back property. The issue was, is we were told by the title company when we were buying the property, they gave us I think the original plans that were a little bit different than what ended up happening with the development there. And so we're also catching up to speed on what we can't do now, unfortunately. So with all of that said, you can imagine, how frustrating it's been for us to try to figure out what we're going to be doing with this investment that we've made, and how that works into our plans, and being able to wanting to do some of these things for the long term. And we actually did our homework, and then the homework didn't matter too much when it boils down to this, and I'm still learning a lot. So we don't understand the risk of flooding, in that area. We're new to the area. I'm not super familiar with that. Not super familiar with a lot of the other development things that are going on. And the most important thing to us is flexibility to do what we want with the property that we purchased. And currently right now, with the way that it's zoned, we don't have the ability to do much back there, when we understood when we were buying it that we would. And we just to clarify, we understood that it was A1. We did not know that it was A1 open space. And so that was very confusing for us. So we still plan on building some dreams back there and trying to figure out what we can do with it. We're unsure of which direction we're going to go. We won't be rushed into what we're going to do, but we've right now decided that we want that area still for our family, to have that be an option for us to do what we need to with that back property in particular. But the zoning obviously makes that impossible for us. And so we're interested in looking into the opportunities we have to rezone or do something a little different than what we had planned in order to be able to do what we need to do. We have not decided yet on, obviously the proposal would have some connectivity through our back lot, which that was news to us over the last week. So we're processing that and haven't decided if that's something we want to exercise right now. But we have decided that we still want that open space in the back, and not sell that for homes to be put in our backyard. But we do want the flexibility, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's where we're at currently. Just gathering information and trying to figure out how do we build into our property some flexibility to do it. We originally planned with the property, so that makes sense.
I'll speak and turn this down. My name is Brady Wilcox. Live in that corner house right there, 2028, 4300 West, straight across from the school. So as I was speaking earlier, the white line that goes down and does an L, that is a walkway. And then the upper portion of it is also a walkway that goes up, and it was supposed to be from the original plans, so you could walk an entire equestrian loop. We did have a horse at one time to try and use that. Wasn't very fruitful, so we do not have a horse anymore. My biggest concern of this is the water. For those that don't live out there, when it rains, it doesn't really absorb into the ground very quickly and easily. I mean, there's been huge lakes back over by where the park's going. I almost want to put up a sign that said you could buy oceanfront property over there. It was so bad. But right across in that first property listed, it has a very big drainage area. And that would be my number one concern if you guys did put more houses or put more things and filled it in. Some of the neighbors, I did go around checking with all of them, making sure to see what their opinions were as well, because some of them have concerns of flooding as well. Start putting in more homes, start pushing water away from things. It's got to go somewhere. So, and I'd hope that you can put that in the other phase 4 and 5, making sure they have some good water disbursement plans, or how that's addressed. So that is my main concern of the location. I know it's been said in here, I'm not in charge of another man's property. So Anyways, thank you.
Thanks.
My name's Chuck Spurrier, 1984 South, 4300 West. One of the subject properties. Just wanted to, hopefully I can come up here and say this, but when we moved in, we understood it was a Sunset Equestrian. There was a farm across the street, albeit owned by the county and leased out to alfalfa growers, I think is what it was. We bought the land hoping to have, a horse trail and some couple of goats and maybe a cow for some meat and that sort of thing, kind of a family homestead. Did not understand that there was going to be a school across the street and a housing development in the back. But things change, and as we've looked at this, one of the reasons we applied for this is just to become more in line with the general plan. And I've lived in past times where I've had a property that's been grandfathered in, and it's a constant battle with neighbors, having animals, having roosters, things like that, smell, noise. Neighbors don't really love it. So to us, it just made a little more sense to see if we could conform a little bit more to the county's objectives, especially being cross street from a high school where I think things would look a little bit tidier instead of we have fields in the back. So those are my two thoughts on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, all ready for a motion to close public hearing. For motion, do we got a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're out of public hearing. All right. Charlie? I mean, my only concern with this is figuring out a way to make sure that the the easement for the detention basin for what's already existing there, plus the new lots are all taken care of, but otherwise I agree with that last gentleman's comments. This falls more in line with the general plan. Kind of falls to Commissioner Favero's comments earlier. It's cleaning up this area. So yeah, I would really like the first gentleman that spoke. I wish he would be a part of it just to make that connection and tie all this together. But
Can I address some of their comments that they made?
sure.
So, Mr. Davis, when this was probably the beginning, one of the first cluster subdivisions, we were trying to figure out how developers would manipulate the code to make it work the way they wanted it to.
This was even before the cluster.
Before the cluster, it was,
yeah.
the county learned how to make code based on this development, and it is a bait and a switch, and that's why we changed code so that people aren't sitting in your shoes with a bunch of property they can't do anything with. So it makes sense that you were confused by it because it was confusing. I don't think anyone would agree to rezoning it to be agricultural at this point because of its location. It wouldn't match the general plan. So if your hopes are to keep that land in agricultural sense, I don't think it would be, if you want to put buildings on that property right now, you can have animals, but you can't have buildings on the property. So
You could have a agricultural building.
an agricultural building of some sort, but not power and water and things like that. So as far as setting up expectations, yes, it's a difficult thing. So
I add on to your question right there.
yeah, go ahead.
So Charlie, if he wanted to join in on this, but didn't want to actually develop it by rezoning it and being part of the rezone, would he be able to put the shop on it that he wants?
Yeah, so it's still a cluster subdivision. All three of those lots will still be in a cluster subdivision, so they'll need to replat, go through the platting process, really just to take those restrictions off. At which time, if I were in Mr. Davis's shoes, I would absorb the back open space parcel into my residential parcel. So I'm not dealing with two different properties, two different tax notices, all that, and two different setbacks. And then I would build a garage or whatever he wants to do back there.
But to make it clear, we probably would not approve he wouldn't get any connectivity incentivized. It wouldn't be in connectivity incentivized unless he puts the road through. So he could keep part of his land to use and rezone, but that the back parcel would be separated by a road.
Potentially, yeah. So the way that this would work, if I mean, if they go in on it together and it's all three of them together, you know, we can, obviously that's easiest and cleanest way. But if Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Spurrier want to go first, it would just stub to Mr. Davis's property, and so would Mr. Robertson's Heritage. Theirs would just stub to Mr. Davidson, or excuse me, Mr. Davis's property, and then when Mr. Davis is ready to develop, then he makes that connection and gets that incentive.
But I just want to set up the expectation correctly, that it would be hard for him to get a rezoned of his property alone without the connection through it.
I think so, yeah. Technically, you could give him the R115 zone non-connectivity incentivized, but each resulting lot would have to be 15,000 square feet. So he doesn't get the flexibility of lot averaging.
But he wouldn't have no lots unless he built the road through.
And he wouldn't have lots unless he has frontage, so he'd have to build the road through.
So the road's the only way it would ever get.
I just want to set up that
Here's
expectation.
my struggle with it. You got an individual like that wants to be able to utilize the property he owns. We just rezoned everything to make it to where it's smaller, right? And now we're gonna pin one person, and this may be right or wrong, I don't know. Pin one person onto keeping that little bit of open space instead of utilizing it the way they would wish to, which putting a building, a shop on it, whatever. Hold them to it when we just approved all these other ones to no longer be with that restriction, right?
Okay, right. Yeah, and I appreciate Mr. Davis's conundrum. There's a lot of research, and I went and knocked on his door last week, and I hope it didn't sound too much like a traveling salesman saying, "How do we get you in this rezone today?" But you know, time is always a little bit fickle, and timing is a troublesome. But if I were in your guys' shoes and in Mr. Davis's shoes, I'd probably say recommend approval, including his property, but allowing it to be severed from the recommendation. It's not going to hurt anything. If we get to the county commission and Mr. Davis has done all of his research and finds something that says, no, I want to stay in the R1 zone, it won't hurt anything for him to stay in the R1 zone. The southern two properties go to the R115, and then maybe 10 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 100 years down the road, he rezones to the R115.
But if it's rezoned, he doesn't have to put that road in.
Not right away. Nope. Nope. In fact, he
only
doesn't have to
gotta
put the road in unless he chooses to
Just
develop
fell
it.
because he needs the frontage.
That's right. And from what I could see, I didn't do a super close analysis between A1 and R115, but I think the only real differences as it would apply to his property is the keeping of large animals.
So if he did rezone, he could put a building on it.
Yes.
Right?
If he did rezone, he
With
could put a
power,
building.
plumbing, everything.
Yep.
Yes,
It actually gives him more than what he has now.
I personally would require that he allows the road to go through to have that, because the property, I mean, to your point, everyone else got rezoned, but they paid a pretty penny for that. And this home's value is it's intrinsic in what is available for what you can do on that land. He didn't pay for a 1 acre, whatever you want land. The house had restrictions, and that's reflected in the price.
I get it, but I look at it from a little bit more objectively, I guess, because we just heard from the ones that are wanting to develop that neighbors hate that open space because it's ugly, it's an eyesore. Putting a nice building on there gets rid of that. And I think about one of my first meetings here with Jacqueline Estates on how, well, if you give us that open space, it's going to look so much better because we'll own it. And then we said, well, we want to make sure you can't build on it. Well, does that property look any better? No, it still looks like crap, you know, maybe a little bit better. But if we would allow them to build on it and utilize the land, it'd be a lot more beneficial to them. And it'd be better in my opinion, it'd be better for the county and their neighbors to see a nice building rather than crappy open space, because it ends up being crappy. People don't maintain it. Just my personal thing. Sorry.
Well, we're talking for somebody that hasn't committed to this yet. So, you know.
Well, I'm talking in general. Sorry, minor in general. Yes.
That's what I'm trying to back up here, is that we're just talking in general to hopefully give him a little more information to work with. And you know, whether he wants to do it or not, that's going to be his final decision. But the ease, I don't care about the ease. What it does, if you get all three of those lots together at the same time, is you change that zoning one time and it's done, then he still can do with it what he wants to do with it.
But we lose the
large
connectivity, except for large animals, and we'll lose the connectivity because he's expressed he doesn't want to put a road through.
The zoning isn't going to change the connectivity. I mean, the connectivity is only going to come into play if he ever wants to subdivide it. The zone doesn't matter.
No, but
The roads are stubbed.
once we approve it and allow him to do what he wants with his land, he's not going to put a road through it, is what I'm saying. So let's approve the people that want to put the road through right now. And if he wants to come back and apply on his own merits, he would be available to do that. That's my only concern.
I think Charlie said go ahead and approve him, but he can opt out by the time it gets to the commission.
But why would he? I'm looking
He
out
can
for the
still do
county
it.
right
Well,
here.
My only concern for Mr. Davis is if he does go in, his property is worth more. Is that going to change his tax base now?
It will. I did talk to him about that. Some of the
So,
downfall would be.
That's
higher
probably the
taxes.
only negative to it.
Yep. Yeah. To answer some of the questions that are out there. We do have a section in our code that says if there's a road that stubs into your property, when you go to develop, you have to tie to that stub. And so if he's got 2 stubs, he'll have to put the road there. The question of whether or not he does put the road there is a valuable one. Because what if he does put a big building right in the middle where the road would go, and then now it makes it really invisible to make that connection. So I did talk to him about this as well. If he did get the rezone, we would probably expect a development agreement that says the road's going to go there. Setback buildings will follow setbacks up from where that road will go. And then he doesn't have to build it until he's ready to, or sell the property and somebody else is ready to.
I see your point, Commissioner Wicker. No, it kind of just to take out Charlie's concern of that. I mean, I guess we could address it in a development agreement, but right now let's just address the proposal that's in front of us. I mean, if he so chooses to come through in the future and want to rezone it, I mean, it would be a pretty easy rezone at that time. I mean, he'd have to go through and pay all the fees and all that again, but I think my recommendation is let's just look at the 2 that's in red there and move on those. I agree, there is concern over that road if we don't.
We prevent it from going.
I do
through.
too, but I think we ought to give Mr. Davis some time to research it and opt out when he gets to the commission. That way, when he does come, he's either out or in, and he would never have to pay any more fees if he opts in.
Can we include him on the stipulation that the road would have to be completed to get the rezone? Because that's what we're expecting of the other 2 owners, and then he could opt out if he doesn't want to put the road through.
Sure. Yeah, we could do that. One other thing to think about, and not to put any great ideas into Mr. Davis's head, but right now he can go build an ag building right where that road would otherwise go.
I'm seeing 2 of them in this picture you got.
Yeah, ag buildings.
So I think it'd be more beneficial and more expedient to work with Mr. Davis, give him the opportunity to get the rezone as long as he agrees to that road alignment and the setbacks from it. There's no guarantee, even with the rezone of Mr. Spurrier's property or Mr. Gonzalez's property, that they're going to put the road in right away. I mean, they have to figure out what to do with the drainage. That's going to be the biggest thing. And our engineer's like, wow, I'm eager to see what they do with that, because there's quite a bit of water. It's a big drainage ditch basin. There's quite a bit of water that goes in there.
Big thing. So you can approve the rezone, but that doesn't mean that it's actually going to get approved as a subdivision, correct?
Correct. Yep. So all it
Because
does,
like there's so much water over there that they filled in for all those other lots and all that water goes there.
Yep.
So now where is all that water going to go?
that's right. So they'll have to fix that through the subdivision process. The only thing the rezone and the development agreement would do is put a commitment tied to the property, recorded to the property, that says if and when that developer chooses to develop, they will build the road in that location. That's all it does. And it says that they've got to have building setback from where that road location would go. Later on down the road, Mr. Gonzalez can do his own subdivision. Mr. Spurrier can do his. Mr. Davis can do his. They could be 3 different times. They will have to address water drainage at that time, because as Mr. Wilcox mentioned, that's a problem out there. And every single subdivision has to show that they can drain.
So they may lose. Yeah,
They may lose
land.
lots.
Lose lots for retaining.
They might, in my opinion, if the 3 of them work together, they probably could maximize it the best, configure that drainage detention basin in a way that could help them, or work with Mr. Robertson in phases 4 and 5 to do something there. Lots of opportunities. It's hard for us to tell exactly what those are, especially right now. We're just setting the rules of, if you get this zone, you got to put a road like this at the time that you choose to develop. That's really all we're here setting that rule for. All of the other rules exist.
I guess the danger in it is the same for all of the owners, is that they lose the restrictions that they have right now in the open space once we rezone it, and there's no. And any other property owner could come in and say, we're gonna put a road through, and then not put a road through, and just do whatever, just do something different with their land.
Yeah, if they were to develop it, the development agreement would say. You're
If
putting a
it's
road through.
developed.
But if not, you're right.
But
they-
just
they
to-
just do something else. Yep.
Okay, what do you want to do with it? My opinion is we approve the rezone for the 2 lots. That, or we recommend approval of the 2 lots that's asked for it, and if, the drainage can get figured out, they'll bring all that through at subdivision, and it sucks because we don't have that tie-in, but until Mr. Davis is ready to do something with it, at that point, maybe we'll get a connection.
Let's ask Mr. Davis one more time. If he wants to opt in, he can still opt out next month when the commission meets. No harm, no foul. Gives you more time to think about it. And your fees have already been paid on your rezone.
Yeah, but these guys have made an application, and I mean, I don't think we're doing fair to hold up their application.
Oh, I wasn't saying hold it up. He can still opt out. We can approve all of them and him. He can say to the commission, we want it.
Yeah, I see your point.
That way he can gather all the facts.
We would have the same development agreement that the other 2 are bound by.
He'd be bound by it, and if he opted out, it just wouldn't, it would just,
If he wants to do that, if he doesn't, let it.
it'd just be the 2. So yeah, that's a good point, Mr. McCormick.
How do we handle a statement for the record? Yeah, you could have him come down. I mean, truthfully, you could rezone his property without his willingness to be rezoned if you wanted to.
I mean, it's just a recommendation, right? We're not rezoning it.
Right. I mean, you could make the recommendation without his
And if
desire to be in it.
he chooses to pull out, like Commissioner McCormick's stating, before this goes to county commission, he can pull out and then it's
Right.
not part of it.
Yep.
But
Yep,
it does give
absolutely.
him some time to do
It
some due
does.
diligence.
Yeah, so if you want to have a statement from him, you can for the record.
Can we though? He's not the applicant.
Oh, you can still bring him in. You can, if you want to let him come and speak in the microphone and make his statement, you can as chair.
Do we want to hear from him again?
I think this commissioner has to, the chair has to recommend it.
Do you want to hear from him?
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Davis,
You have
you're on the hot seat
It's
again.
an invitation, doesn't have to, right?
Yeah, you don't have to. We're just inviting you.
Yeah,
I guess the question would be, are you comfortable if we do recommend all 3 parcels and then it gives you some time to pull out prior to going to?
Yeah, that recommendation seems fair to me. Yeah,
Okay.
Potential to save you some money.
yeah, that helps. Cause I mean, same thing. You brought up tax implications. I don't even know what those are at this point.
So, okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. Okay. We good now?
Good. Saving money up front.
Yeah.
Maybe not later.
Having to go
Yeah.
through this pain again.
Yes. All right, if nothing else, I'm ready for a motion.
Okay. Chair, I'll make a motion. Using today's packet, for, motion for positive recommendation. Adding into that recommendation, the addition of, and it just disappeared. What are you doing to me, Charlie? Mr. Davis's property that is directly to the north of the proposed, application. All other, findings and, recommendations are the same as what is in the model motion in today's staff report. With that?
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I got a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Commissioner McCormick?
Aye.
Commissioner Andriotti? Commissioner Favero?
Aye.
Commissioner Wickern?
Aye.
Commissioner Neville? Commissioner Clontz? Chair votes aye as well. That passes. Okay. Next item on our agenda, public comment for items not on today's agenda. All right. Remarks from the planning commissioners.
Remark, and I'm going to keep it short. And it's not something we have to discuss tonight, but I think I wanted something for people to kind of churn in their heads. And it's something, talking to Commissioner Klontz, and it was kind of bothering me. I'm just a little concerned about, I understand homeowners wanting to do general plan amendments, and I understand developers who have an actual plan that they're moving forward with doing general plan amendments. I'm just worried about getting too many middlemen in there driving up the cost. I want to make sure that we're not flipping these properties and just increasing their value before we get to the end homeowner. I want to make sure that the landowner gets paid fairly and the end homeowner isn't paying for someone to rezone their property in the middle and then sell it to someone else, if that makes sense. I don't know how to solve this problem, but just want people to be aware of it. If there's some way that we can, make sure that with the general plan amendment, it's very difficult. With rezones, we can make them contingent on the property actually being developed in that way and having that go back. I just don't know if we can do that with general plan amendments. Do you guys follow my crazy thought? So say someone has land that's open space, and then someone comes in and says, I'll buy your land for X amount of money, and then they buy it, rezone it, not with the intention of developing, and then they just upsell it to another developer. I'm worried about getting our property values going up and up and up so that money's going into middlemen instead of to our houses on the end line. They're paying more for their land. They have less money to put into the homes and need higher values.
But ultimately, they still got to compete with the rest of the market. So to me, it kind of equals itself out.
But the market is dependent on how much people pay for their land. And the more we raise that land price, I think we're going to be inching up the market for the homes. And that's what I'm concerned about, is as we rezone and as we change the general plan, we do change the intrinsic value of that land.
Well, man,
Go for it.
I don't have any problem with thinking about that, but I do have a problem with properties where the infrastructure is not there and it may not be 20 years.
So maybe we wait on those.
Who knows where we're going to be in 20 years? Who knows what should actually be there? It just seems like we're getting the cart way before the horse on us.
But how do we know that? If we have an application, we figure that it's prudent to pass that through. So how do you determine that?
It costs you hundreds of millions of dollars to get the water there. Where you make 10 or 20 million dollars, not going to do it.
Well, I agree. But if an application comes in for a rezone,
Well, we've done.
But that was at the choice of the applicant, right?
Yeah. That's it.
I mean, the landowner and the applicant come in and made that decision, not us. We just got to do what's proposed in front of us.
But I think we need to ensure that,
Except if that's.
but I just want to make sure that the people that are coming in to do that are actually developing. And when it's so far out in the future, it makes me wonder, are they actually developing or are they investing and driving land?
So if I'm a landowner, yeah.
Comment on that. I mean, that's what you do when you buy stock.
Yeah.
It's what you do in any investment business. And I think that as bad as it appears sometime, that's what makes our system work.
Well, and true, if I'm the landowner and say that we've farmed that and ran that land forever, if I want to get more money out of my land and I want to bring it through the rezone process, because then it's already done, to get more value out of my land, I should have the right to do that.
As a landowner, I'm not so worried. I'm worried about the middlemen a little bit, where we've got people driving up the costs.
Yeah, if the developer has a letter of intent from the property owner to say that they can run through that process, why is it? It's not our choice. I mean, we just respond to the application.
The development, but I guess we can't do it with a general plan amendment, but a rezone, we can say, this rezone is contingent on you actually building this right here. And I'd like to keep those tied so that we don't end up approving things that just end up flipping and flipping and flipping. So,
You could potentially do that with the general plan amendment as well, as long as it includes the rezone. So kind of like you did today with Heritage, you got a general plan amendment and a rezone. If you've got concerns that someone's just trying to change the general plan just to drive prices higher, so they could flip it, and you really don't want to see it, you can tie it to that rezone and whatever development agreement goes with that. So you could always say, yeah, we recommend approval of the general plan change as long as this rezone happens with this development agreement. And then it's contingent on, I think that's the only way I could think to do that, with the rezone.
How long is a rezone good for?
Stays that way. Well, a development agreement has an expiration. And normally, if your development agreement expires, your zone reverts back to what the previous zone was if you've done nothing with the property, if you haven't developed.
2 years, 5 years.
So typically we see 10 years on a development agreement. But bigger projects, it's easy to see 30. I've seen 50 with really big projects. So I would expect some of your bigger projects to be at least 30. You're looking at that. Otherwise, typically, I don't advocate for anything more than 10 unless there's a really good reason.
All right, anything else for planning commissioners?
Good.
Me too.
I have one quick thing.
Yes, sir.
Just belated happy birthday to Commissioner Andriotti.
We should see. Hey, 80 is a mile. I mean, that's a heck of a milestone, right?
That's pretty old.
That's commitment.
There's a lot of knowledge in there, and when we can get him to share his knowledge with us, it actually he's
gonna need a ride home.
you need to tell us, Commissioner Andriotti, how many years you've spent in that seat.
About a 2-year. Yep, as long as you can stand. And it's sort of growth on. It's a noble thing to do. It's privilege. Some days it gets rough. But you don't want. That's what's important, and that's what makes. Other than that, thank you for which.
Yeah. Well, and the pay and the benefits are worth it all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, things great.
Charlie, acting director, what do you got for us?
Did Rick talk to you guys about changing your next work session to the 3rd?
We're meeting on the 3rd, not the 10th.
Okay, and is that all 7 can make it?
Yes.
Awesome. That's what I needed. Thanks.
Liam?
Thanks, Brandon. I don't have anything.
Good, I'm glad.
Thank you, Liam.
If the attorney ain't got nothing, that means we did something right.
Yeah, good job.
Thanks. All right. Well, all ready for a motion to adjourn to a work session.
Motion.
I guess second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Charlie, can we go back in there? Okay. Let's take a bathroom break and we'll meet back in there in minutes.
Yeah.
No, you're back here.
Public hearing is closed, sorry.
Figure out what question.
Last week.
It's not coming your way.
I actually think that retention basin was intended for the original sunset agreement, which included all of the other one. But now none of that's being. So I don't.
Well, I mean, that would be,
Unless he's got.
They can't make the development order.
Oh, I've got a. There we go.
Hello?
On here? But that's supposed to be on. It says that the breakout room doesn't have audio on. You see down here. See, watch if I do that. Nothing happens. I already did. See this? Watch. This has to be on for them to pick up the sound. For it to record. It's not. I just shut it down. That's the one that's recording right now. What's going on with it? Because see, my computer's just quiet, right?
Yeah.
This one isn't recording. You're not recording. This is the only one.
They were there.
J&J, Jeff and Moise. That's right.
Oh, is it still echoing?
It is. Mine's quiet. Get it.
Okay, check.
I don't know if we're gonna be able to tell.
You're on.
Okay, and I'll do this too.
Yeah.
Okay, whenever you guys are ready.
Okay. So test, check, yeah. It's lit up green.
Yeah. The problem is the mouse isn't working for that one.
We'll see that in that meeting on Joe.
It didn't work.
Relatively like microphone.
Yes.
Well,
No, I just get that.
it's not, but the L's not connected.
Black line is.
That's fair. That's why there's no mic.
I'll bet.
Yeah, and that's okay, as long as they can see it.
But the problem is, I wonder if we take the battery out and put it back in. You know how sometimes you can do that and it.
Weak.
Okay, the question is, how do you open those?
Honestly, I'm not planning on using that.
You're not?
No.
Okay, I'm not gonna worry about it.
Paper today.
Tell me when you're ready.
We're ready.
You're getting recorded.
Here's. All right, let's go. We're gonna try and get out of here before midnight. I'm proud to see your shot.
Well, you said it was before midnight, we'll get out.
I know, normally you ditch us by this thing. All right, sorry. Charlie, you're up. Westbridge.
That time of night. So yeah, Westbridge Meadows, you guys have seen this proposal once, you've been on a field trip, actually, I think you've seen it twice in work session and a field trip. We've been going a little bit back and forth with them and staff, just trying to fine tune the submittal. This is the most recent iteration, and they wanted to come and chat with you guys about, how this is different. And it seemed like the biggest focus that we have tonight is to look at how they're proposing to change the R1 zones. The way that they're proposing to change them with a few little tweaks, I think, is gonna, in my opinion, bring our R1 zones into the 20th century, 21st century, where they're still kind of back in the early 19th.
Where are I living in the past?
It's pretty clear from our R zones that the code was developed in the 40s.
It is.
It was, yeah, it is. So if you look at some of the more updated ordinances, you'll see
100 by
stuff
100.
like this. Yeah, that's right, that's right. So without any further ado, I figure Michael, Cameron, if you guys want to, with that, walk us through some of your proposed changes.
Yeah, so you guys can see an overview of our development. We've had the pleasure of talking to a lot of you about this. And what we're trying to do realistically is we're trying to match the general plan in this area. And we want this community to be the town center for the industrial areas that are coming. And to match the general plan, what we've noticed is that to get the densities that your general plan anticipates in that area, you'd really have to do an overlay zone if the current zoning didn't get changed. To be able to get the setbacks and street layouts that you need to get the kind of densities that are shown in the general plan for that area. And so what we want to do is kind of do an end around on the zoning to get the zoning brought up to speed so that you can actually adopt it. One of the things we noticed is that throughout the county, these R1 zones aren't heavily adopted by developers. And when we went through the zoning tables and took a look at what kind of requirements they had, it was pretty clear why these aren't widely adopted by other developers and trying to be used. Because you just can't get there. You can't get there on some of the rear setbacks and front yard widths that the current zoning has. And it wouldn't be something that developers would.
We gotta go. It's like it's Smith and Edwards. There it goes.
When they flash the lights at us. that means it's
Yeah.
on.
You gotta go.
Sorry.
Last call.
Man, was there a thunderstorm today?
It's club. Mood lighting, we're at the club.
All right. So what you see in front of you is a proposed table that would amend the zoning in the R1 zone. And we've done this comparing it to a lot of other cities and counties in the Wasatch Front to more closely match what other developers are actually using when they go and plat out a subdivision. And we feel like these tweaks to the R1 zones could really help get more developers to adopt the zone. But it also, the biggest benefit for us would be, we could get a subdivision approved without having to do a special overlay zone, which sometimes get really tedious and hard to administrate at the county level, especially when a building. Go ahead, Jeff.
The overlay zone. Are you talking about the overlay on materials on the dirt?
No, I'm talking about special exceptions to the zoning code that are allowed only on specific subdivisions. For example, some of the overlay zoning that they proposed in the Ogden Valley, you guys haven't been involved in those, but as you plan out bigger subdivisions with tighter zoning, what you're gonna end up with is people are either gonna try and conform to the zone that you guys have published, or they're gonna come in and say, the zoning that you have published doesn't work. Can we do a special overlay just for our subdivision and write that into a development agreement? And then you're giving that exception to that developer.
Are you saying that that'd be in ours now, it'd be more clear?
Yeah, so right now, if we went with the zoning as is, we would, and we wanted to get this subdivision approved, part of our application would be to ask for that overlay zoning. And we say, hey, your existing zoning doesn't work for what we're trying to lay out here. And to make this city center a reality with viable commercial and the rooftops to support it, we would want to do exceptions to your zoning code that only we could do in that specific area. And then the county would approve an overlay zone for that specific acreage that we could go then and conform to that overlay zone. But it becomes problematic, especially at the county level, when we come in and we drop 50 permits on the counter and they're all different from your public zone. And your building permit reviewers have to go back and check the overlay zones to make sure that they're compliant with one specific subdivision. We can keep repeating. So rather than do that, what we would rather do is work, and we worked with Charlie on this all year. We've been working on this since February with Charlie. And what we want to do is propose some small changes to the zoning code so that it just works for developers and then everybody can use it if that zone is allowed on the general plan, right? And then you don't have to make exceptions for somebody's property versus somebody else's property. You can just, they can just use a zoning code that works for everybody. And then the building permit reviewers can go through and check compliance with that. They don't have to go through a special checklist or keep track of this versus that acreage. Does that make sense?
Yep, that sounds good. So the procedure is we accept this through here and you take it to commission.
Yeah, so what I'll do, today we're just talking about we want to do the details and just make sure you guys are comfortable with the changes. And anything that you guys might want to tweak, and then I'll take our current ordinances and just do the red line changes to show how this is reflected in that. And then we'll come back to you guys in public hearing.
How does that affect like our general plan?
It doesn't affect the general plan at all. In fact, we'll draw from the general plan.
It's just an ordinance within. Already.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, my only criticism of the JDC Ranch project is that we had to write a development agreement that didn't really say what the code says. They've got 3 or 4 different zones in JDC, but if you were to go and look at what they can actually develop, they've got a lot of different rules in each of those zones than what you'll find in the code book. Had we had some of these more up-to-date standards, could have used them.
So just blanketed it for that.
Yep.
So essentially, most of the standards are just getting our lots more narrow so we can fit more homes per road. And we're just making better, it's just making better use of our frontage.
Yep.
And just tightening up
Attainable.
those, yeah.
Hoping for attainable, yep, hoping for attainable. I went and toured a subdivision today down in what is that?
Late.
South of Layton, what is that one? Kaysville, yeah, in West Kaysville, and it was really interesting to see the narrow, deep homes, everything that we've been talking about for the last little while. It's interesting to see a developer.
brand new?
It's 5 to 10 years old. Mhm.
So they're 10 years ahead of us, just in our neighbor city.
You'd think that I would have copied from them just when we were doing our general plan, but they must have been listening to us. And they took note.
I disagree with the comment that it doesn't make changes to the general plan. I mean, the general plan states all of our medium to large lot residential is at a 15,000 square foot density, right?
Mhm.
I read this that we're now going to allow down to 10,000 square foot lots in those jails.
Our R115 zone, with street connectivity allows you to go down to 6,000 square feet.
But still, the overall base density won't go away from 15,000.
Right, that's true. That's true. And that was the intention here as well.
But, I mean, the way I read this is if it's an exterior lot, they have to meet that. If it's an interior lot, it goes down to 10.
Well, it can go down lower.
It could, but still the overall density.
You mean the frontage?
No, I mean the square foot.
So
Lot area.
exterior boundaries 15.
So basically, we're going to 3.5 lots per acre. Instead of the 3 lots per acre, like the general plan states.
That potentially, so I mean, that might be a finding for non-compliant with the general plan. So let me take a deeper dive into that.
But doesn't our general plan kind of govern that? And because we say they have to meet an average of 15,000 square feet.
But if the R115 zone, if we change it to this, then it allows them to go smaller than that.
But I think,
Because the general plan is just a guiding document. This is gonna be what they're gotta follow for development.
I thought our code said that it can, when you get into averaging. It specified 15,000 square feet, doesn't it?
If you're doing lot averaging with street connectivity or with connectivity incentivized, including open spaces, you can get down to 6,000 square feet.
You can get down.
But your overall density can't go below.
Drop below 13,000, so I don't think this changes it.
So let's make sure it says that though, that you're not dropping below that overall.
Density.
Yeah, and our intent when we came up with the zoning changes and tweaks was not to. It wasn't to increase the density of each zone. It was only to allow lot uses that made sense. So for example, one of the lot uses in the R3 and R2 zone, and even in the R115 zone. If you look at the rear setbacks in your current zoning, most of those are 25 and 30-foot rear setbacks, and you've got a really small lot. By the time you marry the two ideals, your lot actually goes back to something that's kind of taken away from that overall lot use density. And so when you look at an R2 or an R3 zone, and you could get a 5,000 square foot lot, well, because of the rear setback, the house that you could build on that is just teeny tiny, right? Because of the marriage of the front and rear setbacks. And so our goal wasn't to increase density in the zones. It was only to make the setbacks and the lot frontages work better. And also to protect some of the county's ideals in how those houses fronted the streets. You know, your current zone does incentivize alley loaded product once the lot size gets really small, so that you're not having a lot of garage dominant front elevation on the street, right? And so this would allow that same incentivization. They basically would still have to, at some point, when the lots get small enough, you'd really be better served by fronting that off of an alley with a rear load street, and then the front of the house faces the exterior to the subdivision and creates more curb appeal, right? But if you modify the setback to allow that alley to have a smaller setback at the garage because it's off an alley, then you can get back to that attainable housing goal of having a decent sized home on a small lot that doesn't look bad from the street, right? But definitely, we're not here to propose that we increase densities of each zone. That's not the intent. And if we did that, we need to scrub it and make sure we edit it out, because that isn't what we want to do.
Yeah, we could just adjust that anticipated density per acre. We could put in there maximum dwelling units per acre, and then just put the
gross density can't exceed. Yeah. So I think notes can accomplish that and basically make sure that we're not doing anything contrary to the current county zone. But we do want something that the developers can see as an attractive option to develop some of this more attainable housing rather than just do big lots and big houses. You know, and that's the funny thing about today's market is we're kind of missing that middle, you know. When we go out and look at what's available on the market, you can buy a townhome for 350 to 400. Or you can, the next step up is a house that's pretty big for 550, you know, or low 500.
And that's not really attainable.
No,
for most.
It's not. And what we really need is something that's detached housing that competes at that 350 to 400.
With a smaller lot.
With a smaller lot, yes.
I mean, agree.
And that's what
I would have put it at 10, but these guys said.
They said, yeah, so I'm thinking this number is
I-
and it'll be based on gross divided by 15,000.
I like having a set standard as well, because
So I'll change that.
I feel like every time we do one of those overlays, whatever you want to talk about, it's doing a favor for somebody, right? And then it's hard to remember, have the attention of what we did for the previous person and the next person. I just hate doing these favors, I want to be consistent.
So you just bring in fair engine.
Right.
But for roads like this.
well, not only fairness, but efficiency, right? Like
Yeah.
we're talking about a county. You guys have 9,000.
Yeah, we don't have time here. Will every month.
You've got 9,000 acres that are gonna immediately develop. If you've got that many applications on your desk trying to process permits and double check that they meet zoning standards.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us you know, we're not doing it right, and we plan something that has exceptions, and everybody can, you know, utilize those exceptions, carry down to one. But if we get it, but it's the zoning code, there's people who are adopt, right now, nobody's adopting the R2 or R3 zones, you know, so like, you go through county-wide, nobody's using it.
Oh, we've actually seen some.
Yeah, there's like two that are old, right?
I mean, we've got a couple that are coming online.
Sweet.
Some towns.
Well, we would want to make sure that, you know, we add to that, right? Like with the zoning changes, that's what we're trying to do, is just introduce that fairness and efficiency so that more people will adopt in the appropriate areas. If the general plan allows that zone, here's what it works, right?
Yeah, well, the beautiful thing about that, we went and have a meeting like we just had on Taylor's Landing.
Yeah.
There's all.
No, that is all.
We're gonna be fixing old problems for years. And just like Andrew said, that one's been a thorn for a long time.
Well,
And we're not done with it.
No.
that was a learning.
If it would
For all.
But what is the way?
If it would have been built sunset equestrian, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah, but the reason I'm gonna say the reason that helped it fail was because of its size. But at the same time, it would have been nice if it would have been successful and finished through, because it would have been continuous on a big area.
We'll look at it from the scale of, now we got the high school, now density needs to be around that. So I mean, it's, yeah. Sorry, we got off topic. My only, I mean, if Charlie can make these, you know, we put that maximum units per acre based on the zones, I mean, I don't see a problem with that, but it's all gotta be based on the other parts of the general plan too. The connectivity and all of those things have gotta come into play. To achieve what we're trying to, you know, get here. Cause just like, you know.
Well, that's where, I agree, and that's where some of the block designs come into play. I think it's the, they just passed the individual lot exhibits. But some of the block designs, we want to make sure that those block designs are utilized to make sure that the connectivity and some of the traffic calming measures are utilized in those blocks and the smaller zones as well. Because as you get more people in one area, you don't want them zooming through the neighborhood and, you know, going too fast on some of the connecting streets. So you want to make sure that you're using some of those fold outs and narrower street widths, where they don't front garage to the street. So that the traffic calming measures can kind of slow traffic down in those areas. And but still maintaining plenty of connectivity for people who can get in and out of there efficiently. And I don't know how many of you remember that on the field trip that we went to down in Vineyard, that one neighborhood around the school, that is your R3 zone. Those lots, those were big houses. They looked like these houses, but they were on small lots. Most of those lots were 3,000 to 4,000 square foot lots. And it was a normal feeling neighborhood where kids and parents could play, and they were close to a school, and they could, you know, ride their bikes around and get to the school without taking a bus and stuff like that. But that was an R3 neighborhood. And I
It kind of seems like they're all up in the air too.
yeah, they're all 2 stories.
Is there a water challenge there?
Yeah, well, yeah, Vineyard is right next to Utah Lake. Now, that particular subdivision surprisingly doesn't have water challenges as much. They still have basements. But, it's because there's, from that particular neighborhood where the school was and those houses right around it, there's like 20 feet of fall to the Utah Lake, which is kind of, you wouldn't really think that, but being that close, but there is.
Did you notice the trails, like you had, it was a significant drop below the trails, right? Like all the trails we had around the houses, it looked like retention areas, right?
Yep.
Like small retention.
Yep, and we designed those specifically to slow down the water before, you know, we discharge it to Utah Lake.
You can duck hunt out there.
That'd be sweet.
So I'm concerned I have about that neighborhood is, I don't think I. There was a 5 foot setback.
On side.
Because of 10 feet between the two houses.
Yep.
If they were single story, I don't think I would have minded as much, but when you had a gable end right next to a gable end at 2 stories, that
Feels like you
really.
can jump from roof to roof.
Yeah, I feel like if you're gonna go 2 stories that tight, you need to have a hip roof to make it look a little classier. That's
what they do in the
nitpicky,
movies,
but I-
when they're chasing people across the roofs. You gotta be able to jump.
How you supposed to?
Yeah.
Yeah, that just really architecturally that bothers me,
Yeah.
because that's where it looked really tight, and I don't think it would have looked as tight if we could have.
If you had-
If only one story right next to each other, or the two and not the roof too, you know,
Yeah.
that got really tall.
Yeah, and a lot of ones.
They were over 35 feet.
But 35 feet.
But you're
Close
right,
35.
like architecturally,
It's
when
kinda
we
like
build the
American
house,
College.
the narrow house on a narrow lot, when we build a single story, it's actually gabled kind of down the middle of the lot, right? But when we build a two-story, they tend to be gabled side to side, perpendicular to the way of the lot. And so it creates those those eve transitions that's like you're talking about, and it's more noticeable, unless you get the ribbon power.
Right, so,
And, the other thing that you can do is vary some of your setbacks, middle of the 5 and 8, and be open to some of those. All it does is increase your lot width, which can be good and bad. Most of the time, that's not a bad thing if it goes from 5 to 8, and you do 5 feet on one side, 8 feet on the other, and that can reduce it.
I think 5 to 5 maybe can vary hip and, gable end, so you're not just quite so tight.
Yeah.
I say I might think it's ugly, but somebody might think what I like is ugly, so.
There are standards
Some
for
options.
beauty.
Well, yeah, if we get road all modern elevations, then the roofs are going every.
Solution, it just causes, it's like a tight solution, not so much aesthetic.
So these tables are the current.
Yeah.
So Charlie, can you put together something that shows our current, what we have compared to this, so that's easier? for-
Yeah, highlight it what you do.
In your next meeting, you'll definitely have that, that we'll go through. I just wanted you guys to kind of get an eye on this, so just to see what your knee-jerk reaction is, if you've got any.
Yeah, when we move this to an application and we're asking for a change, we'll have a comparison table that we'll be able to even see. And I think before that even, Charlie, if we could circulate that just to give them some additional homework. I mean, I've already keeping you guys after school and now I'm giving you homework. You guys are gonna hate me by the end of it. But, yeah,
It's just putting all the bad stuff on the pat, procedural.
It's okay, I put Pat at the end for we can be manager.
You know, there's those brain jerks, so that you kind of stay.
That gets him, they need it. He talks about it anyway.
But yeah, that difference table would be definitely part of the application for a change, but we should circulate that. And we went through that same exercise, we had the table side by side to try and make sure that we weren't changing too much and getting away from the themes. And basically, like I said before, what we tried to preserve was the density of each zone. We didn't want to increase density, and we also wanted to preserve that incentivization of going to alloy product once the lots get pretty small. If they get down into the 3,000 and 4,000 square foot size, it's gonna be better to have those alleyways tucked back with the garages off the alleys instead of all fronting the streets, right? And it's gonna be a cleaner layout. There's gonna be more room for people to put their garbage cans and stuff. And you're not gonna have such a cluttered roadway and curb appeal, right? So those are the kind of things that we try to preserve in that, the zoning tweaks. But, what we wanted to do is just present these in a manner that kind of gives you guys a feel for what we're trying to create out at our West Ridge Meadows project. And truthfully, we kind of have to do this before we go and present our West Ridge Meadows project, because without these zoning changes, we're just gonna ask you for an overlay, and then I'm gonna do everything that I don't like doing, is asking for exceptions to the rule and feeding the problem child for the next 30 years to the plan reviewer's office, right? So I would love to get
a good thought, man.
yeah, I would love to get
That's
some
what-
zoning changes and some consensus on what can be a good zone for some of these smaller, single family lots.
And give us a guideline for the future.
Yep, and then we can present our plan that conforms to that as well as to the general plan. And then we're not making exceptions for the build out phase of this thing. I mean, because our project that we're gonna propose is over 1,000 acres. And it's a master plan project that would be rezoned, but the lifespan of that project is gonna outlive everybody in this room, right? maybe not this guy, but certainly me, I'm not gonna be long for this world. I like dirt bikes and snowmobiles too much.
Is that the 1,415 acres?
Yeah, that's the overall area.
That's pretty close to the lake. You're using poor coloring just for future. We paint that in green.
Lake colored.
Yeah,
Acres.
right, I wouldn't.
Well, and a lot of our acreage, you know, the net usable acreage, we're gonna end up giving a lot of that to the wetlands area, parks, roadways. So our overall plan is gonna be a large comprehensive master plan development with a lot of varying uses. And what we're really trying to do is get enough rooftops out there to incentivize the commercial development so that people can have a town center out here. So that they don't have to drive past all of the rest of our neighbors to go shopping. You know, in fact, this could be an area where some of the other neighbors come in and shop because we created something unique, right? So that's overall what our goal is, but we can't push a cart before the horse and propose a subdivision that's gonna need a lot of exceptions to the zoning code. What we'd like to do is propose some smart changes to that zoning code and then go through and get the subdivision going after that.
You guys purchased all the land.
So we haven't purchased all of it, but we have it all under contract. Some of it we're purchasing as we go. Like we've got to take down schedule to the brand owners. But we purchased a good portion of it. Yeah.
I'm just looking through the plan, but I wanna, like Casey said, I wanna see the comparison. I don't see any issues. As long as our overall base density doesn't increase. And I think it's a good proposal, like we've met. I agree with the comments on I really like the alley loading on the small lot. I mean, when we met at the little clubhouse and walked through there, I mean, just the feel of, you know, the open front streets and everything in the back. I mean, I like that idea. So.
Great. Okay, so the changes that are proposed here dives into several different sections of our code. So I'll pull those out and get you a good comparison. One of the things that we have to be a little bit sensitive to is some of those apply to the Ogden Valley as well. So we might have to develop two tracks, one for the Ogden Valley, one for West Weaver. But
I heard Ogden Valley's coming here with us. Well,
if the Valley Floor incorporates, they
I
might.
heard there'll be us and then two of them.
Let's hope so.
That's it, and they are getting close.
I gotta pass it first.
Well, their plan says they should. I can't imagine those guys.
What's that?
Week of food.
Yeah, but those guys.
Study said West River next to, and we didn't.
Yeah, a lot of folks up there, I think they will, and then I
I
think
do.
they'll go through the election cycle and have
Yeah,
to make
totally
the decisions as a city.
different concept about.
Maybe we shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
Fire the most.
That'll be the one the governor's.
No, I mean, I would love your input, like, if you wanna just email your comments and stuff to Charlie, that would be probably the best way, just so we don't get cluttered on where the communication is going. And that way, we could roll.
Oh, yeah, you just call Charlie.
Give me a call. I'll make it work. In fact,
You can serial text it for
if
you.
I can get your guys' just gut reaction from what you're looking at, by the end of this by next Tuesday, I can have something ready for you guys in your next work session.
That'll be good. I just looked at comparable to like. I like her seeing it here, right?
Mhm.
In general.
I just like to
it's
notice what- I like to see what
Differences.
changes.
Okay. Okay.
Like, if our zoning code just had a simple, like everything in house, how would be nice, but the paper got the big, so it might be kind of hard.
No, so that is my intention. So we have actually combined the R1,
We've gotten a
R2.
lot better, yeah.
So I am slowly combining all of them.
Planning history that kind of created the.
What if something happened to you?
Messy.
We didn't have all this stuff up here that you thought.
You know, Tammy and Felix are coming along so well that I don't think you're gonna skip a beat. Honestly, I mean, these guys are just picking it up.
You ain't going nowhere, are you? Write it down.
I'm not trying to, but you know, accidents happen.
We chased all the plans. No, wait, what?
Yeah, well, let me.
Not everyone.
I think we started with 6 planners, we're down to 3. Down to 3, isn't that right? 3? Or is it-
We got Marta as well. So Marta's a planning tech. And we're working on, I think, moving around a little bit, but we just need to see what the city's, what the Ogden Valley is gonna do. If they incorporate, right? And I gotta be frank,
It's not us.
over the last year, the amount of work we've done for the Ogden Valley, maybe, for me, maybe 15% compared to
Did
what's
that
going on.
site incorporate without this site?
Yep, taking it down. And I don't know if you guys know, but maybe I already told you guys this, we did a vacant lot or a entitlement inventory for our moderate income housing report. And we have approved in the last 2 years, almost 1,500 lots.
But how many does that include the ones that we've approved 3 times for Pat? When we take that and just.
And then we're gonna change it again.
To be fair, 1,500 does include the 1,000 in JDC, so that's a big chunk, but
Well,
it's
the other
still a lot.
500 was Pat, through the 3 times we've seen him. I'm just harassing you.
We're ready to move on to the next item?
Stuff now, I'm happy.
We got 7 minutes to talk about Pat stuff.
Yep.
Okay, well, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Take a look at that, and then, one other tweak that you'll see before we come back with an application on our subdivision. Is we met with the, planning commission. We met with the county commissioners individually. And gotten some of their feedback. And we recognize that what they did at JDC Ranch and proposing some attainable housing. With some deed restricted attainable housing into their plan. We want to do the same thing. It was something that was on the forefront of our mind. We didn't know how to approach it. But, after meeting with the commissioners, it was pretty apparent that that would be a big benefit to the area by creating some of those. So our plan, after we tweak the zoning and get the zoning kind of tightened up, we're gonna kind of take a look around through our plan and make sure that we identify areas that we can create some individual, single-family detached housing that people can afford. And we've got some pretty exciting things that we've been working on for years. It's called flex homes. And basically it's a house that can start out small, but already has foundations for additions for when their family grows. So maybe it starts out as like a 700 or a 900 square foot house, but it already has a foundation to add on to the back. And then they can add a detached garage later too. The starting price would be super affordable, way less than even a townhome probably. And then they could add on to it as their family grows or as they.
It's like you just cover it with a deck or something and then as it grows, that's cool.
And you still have all the plumbing so you can connect these. So it's really cool, and we'll talk about, we might even do a separate work session to kind of walk you through the steps of what that attainable housing, because it's kind of unique in that it grows with the family. So we might need to take a little bit of an extra work session to go over that, make sure you guys do that, but it's something we've been working really hard on. As a builder, it's hard for us to keep. The weird thing is that missing middle really affects our bottom line because it affects our predictability. The houses, it's weird, the house is above 650, we can still sell pretty quickly because those buyers have cash or they're coming with a big down payment. But the middle houses that are below 550 and, you know, competing with some of the townhomes down in the 300s to 400s, those aren't moving very well. And it's because those buyers can't qualify very well. And sometimes they do have to step back into a townhome. And so we kind of want to address that middle. So.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah. But we appreciate your guys' time and attention and,
Thanks for bearing with us through.
I guess we're letting Pat have 2 minutes.
Well, you're cutting down to 5. so-
Just keep talking.
So, we sent in a plan, but then the planners changed some stuff, so we actually tried to meet with what they wanted to change, and we changed some stuff.
It's just making a road in a different spot, and put some trees on the other one. I read the comments, they were easy.
Well, it was making knuckles and changes, but, let me show you guys this really quick. But, what I really wanted you guys to look at was what the parks really wants. And that's what this plan is. And we just barely finished this today. Because we added the new changes that the planners wanted. So the parks really wanted. This is the old, I didn't know if you guys wanted to see the comparison to what they were asking. But now with these changes, this is my other subdivision right next to it, you guys have seen forever, the Longhorn. And what we've done is we put all the parks. And our retention pond is not, I mean, our secondary pond is not gonna be nearly that big. But what I've worked out with the water department, who's gonna actually take over the secondary, is they wanted me to show how big eventually we could make that secondary pond. As correct, they said, look, we agree, we'll take it over, we want to build it out as more development comes in, but you have to give us the land to build that out, and so that's why we showed it. It's actually only going to be this big to begin with, and then we'll do this as parking or whatever the parks wants, we'll kind of create something for that to be open, but knowing that it's going to come that big. That's why I wanted to show that, just so it wasn't the water department really wanted me to show that so that it wasn't adding to the park. But this gives the park department what they're looking for.
Be cheaper to do it all at once, Pat. Just
Well,
get
the
it
problem
all
is I
done,
don't have
you
enough
know.
water to fill it.
So it'll be excavated, but it won't be filled, you'll just have like a berm in the middle that you take down.
Well, it'll be lined, so we'll do the line here, and then as we build it out.
That's a long board down there. This is the Myers problem. Right.
Yeah. This is Vaquero, the bad word in.
Bad word reads, yeah.
And so I really wanted to, like I said, show you guys the parks with what they were wanting to get. Cause I came to them and proposed a couple little pocket parks and then worked on some stuff across the street with them. And they came back and they proposed this, so we redid, they designed everything to show the acreage they needed to put this park in, so that's kind of what,
engineers.
working with the park.
She's one of the other.
You ended up with 113 lots.
I mean, I like this way.
Or no, how many did you end up with in here?
I will. I really like this.
Total of 290 with both projects.
Both.
With both. And what we've done is we've blended, any other development that we can't control, we we put the smaller stuff in the middle and the bigger stuff on the outside to kind of match it as close as we could with, the other lots back there, they're bigger right along the edges of the bigger lots. So you didn't have really small lots next to the bigger lots. We put those six back, which I really love. And those aren't teeny tiny lots, those are still 6,000 and 7,000 square foot lots. These is all must be here. What does this have on-street parking on both, and then this could be.
Is this a trail through here, Pat, right here?
Yes, yep, that's a trail, and then
Here and here.
this was kind of what they were kind of proposing is something, it's kind of like a trail, but what did you call it, Felix? Do you remember?
Like an alleyway.
An alleyway, yeah.
Which one are we looking at?
The middle
Oh,
cross section, I'm not sure what it was called.
I was gonna, you could even join it in with your six packs above, so you don't have to do it twice. Use the driveways also as
Oh,
alleys
perfect, yeah,
slash.
that would be way better, I didn't even notice that, you're right, that would be.
That's what Felix and I were kind of talking about, and we'd be more than happy to consider that, your block, even though it'd be a private driveway, private shared lane is what our code calls it. We probably want some signage on it that says private driveway, pedestrian and, cycling traffic only, or something like that.
And this was really, we just got these back the other day and I wanted to try to get these for this meeting tonight, so that's why they're quick changes, but at least wanted to get, so you guys could see what our thoughts were.
And then how many outs to 12th Street?
2, so it'd be 1 here and 1 over there.
Until more, I mean, there'll be. there could be more
actually,
homes that-
but right now.
This is all the Marriott's property right here. And that's they decided to go. And I know they're kind of waiting until I bring the sewer up and then they're gonna, I mean, I can't.
Holstein Street.
So this is conceptual. And if this was approved and went forward, then you lack the amount of egresses to get more than what, 30 lots initially?
No, with both egresses, we have enough.
You do have,
Yeah,
you're not gonna get to this right away.
Correct, but we will bring the sewer in and then put a temporary egress road in right away.
But out to 12?
Out to, because I have to have the sewer.
It'd have to go to 6,700, but.
Yes.
Still a
correct,
second.
Correct, yeah, so the sewer will start back here. And then we'll put that in first, so we'll put this road in as an egress point. Or we can only do 30 here without this egress point.
Right.
Because you are correct about that.
Not enough trees.
Gary actually threw up a little bit himself.
Your original version has a street without trees, and Gary said, well, why didn't they put trees on that street? I said, Gary, you're asking. He said, no. I like this. This looks really good. How different is Longhorn? Is that the same?
It's the same. We did not change Longhorn for what you guys had already approved.
Cool. HOA, I'm assuming.
We're trying not to have an HOA because the parks will take over all the open space.
Okay.
Does the county take over those ponds?
No.
Parks District.
Yeah, we'll ask the park district to do it. We'll have a detention easement.
How's the park district?
No, the pond will be taken over.
Sorry, are you talking about this pond or are you talking about the detention?
detention.
The detention basin? So the detention will be Ewert County, yeah. I don't know if it's gonna be county owned, so I've seen it, well, I've seen it a few different ways, like Mr. Gonzalez today, he's got a big detention basin in his backyard, right?
He owns it, but it's just got easement on it that they can't change.
Here.
Gotta say that.
So he's
gonna maintain it?
Right here.
I would assume the Parks District.
from a flood mitigation perspective, the county engineering division will maintain it. But from a needs and a management perspective, that's where the landowner
It could
is.
be HOA, it could be the park, it could be.
A lot of times we sell them to individuals.
Landscape and mowing.
Correct. Like in
Well, I would
Vaquero,
get along.
where that open space is.
They would not have.
I wish he'd.
But if we push everything to the park,
The elevator, dump it all into your pond and reuse your water, couple basins.
I would absolutely love that. We just don't know if some secondary companies won't allow you to do that. We do it. I did it in
No.
Harrisville.
But
Works out great.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Between them all.
we'll need a separator. You probably don't want all the road dump going in there, but.
Yeah, if you have to do what,
As long as they file on the water.
Make sure.
Are they pricey, Charlie?
So you don't have.
Separators.
What's that?
The separators pricey.
I don't know. I've never priced them out. I know we do require them with like some conditional use permits, like for auto mechanics and stuff like that.
I mean, for a runoff. It's like, what it's gonna find about Riverdale Road today, you know, I mean, everybody has to separate and stuff like that. Would basically treat that to put it back in there, but they are.
I think
I mean, if you maintain them the way they're supposed to be maintained, they're not bad. If you're UDOT, you only look at them once every 10 years.
Between just
full
like
of
this
dirt
one would
and-
be between.
and
those
not
two,
functioning.
Cause they share.
They're gonna spend a week over there with a vac truck
It's not
cleaning that
bad.
sucker, because that one on Riverdale Road
But-
is.
You gotta collect
it's
fees
as big as
somehow.
this
But
damn
if they
road.
take this pathway, then they're gonna
That-
put through there.
The only change, what the cul-de-sac, I'm just kidding. That's a good spot to put
a
it.
small one.
That's a good spot to put it. Our engineering division is gonna want that to go through.
Well,
Other than that,
so
There you go.
one reason we didn't, and my
Where's
engineer
golf
pointed
course?
it out, which made a lot of sense, is if we try to connect this, you'll have unbuildable. We will still do it, but whoever this guy is will have unbuildable. The lots. These lots, how are you gonna get those lots buildable? They pointed that out to me, because it doesn't matter to me if it has.
About the same size as that block, right? They should be able to get the same amount of units in there.
Keep going, keep going.
They just did a di-
It's
and
very
they-
Yeah.
You have to bring it out and come in here and stub with a T and loop around. it, Come out or something, but
Who owns that property? You know,
The other Midas brother or something, it's a Midas family.
Okay.
how does the Midas family feel about it? Do they care? Cool.
But we could,
I
we
like
could
that.
still stub something if you want. Stubs don't bother me very much. You know, this has the access right here. They could easily just do. But again, if that's what you guys want to do. The engineers pointed out to me, I was like, oh, that makes.
Like, that is not.
You guys want it, we could still-
I mean, I see both sides. Yeah, but I see what he means too there, because we're gonna have another connection come in somewhere right here, preferably there.
It's gonna be a big block.
But-
It'll be a pretty big block.
Maybe you have all this.
Yeah. Like a cul-de-sac.
Or if you have, you could, I bet you can make it. Move around. build houses.
Got enough place?
If nothing else, like a trail connection.
Trailers.
And maybe that's it.
We'll tie all this, because it's, you could tie this all.
Dead end road we live on, we could park.
Has this-
Over 30 years,
Chris-
what's your favorite
Chris
piece?
thinks-
Very sad.
That's cool.
Damn, mother.
Does the park, has the park district specifically seen that layout?
Yeah, we've sent it back and forth. a couple of times.
I like that.
The one thing they really wanted.
He's farming from
was
outside.
all-
Yeah.
We want way more parking. And that was another thing here is we can work on parking and stuff here.
There's a
This
way.
is good.
It's one thing if you park your truck there. on this
Yeah, the
side.
amount of parking, and what we did with this detention, if we did a couple other, I mean, there's so many other, we talked internally of options we could.
Make him talk about on street, but don't say it, Gary.
On-street detention.
We done that.
I'm good, yeah, I just wanted
You
to.
like it?
Yeah.
Thanks. We're done.
Okay.
That was the fastest conversation we've ever had with you.
I do try to listen every once in a
It
while.
only took 3 times, but 3rd time's the charm.
Hey, if you guys need me to come to the next meeting to put him on the spot, you know, whittle down his time, I'm available.
If we can keep it on topic, it's not bad. Sometimes you like to try and sneak things in on.
Well, now that we're talking.
Oh, we're done. Let me see that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherman. Yeah, you love the old.
So you got figure one of these or.
I really might want one or Felix, but.
Session, and we just.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take one of each if you have.
I'll take that.
Yes, sir.
Oh, there you are.
That was Liam. It don't take long to really go medium long.
Are we finished, Brent?
Put the list in.
What's going in back there?
Felix.